Шановні колеги, ми продовжуємо нашу роботу,
Dear colleagues, we
продовжуємо
continue our work.
першу панельну
We
дискусію.
continue first
Я
panel
надаю
discussion,
слово для
and I give the floor
онлайн-представлення
to
наступного спікера, пані Лілії Амелічевої.
Lidia Nesterenko so that she can present the next speaker. We give the floor
Це студент бакалаврату спеціальності
to
психологія факультету педагогіки, психології та соціальної
a
роботи.
student who is from Chernovtsi National University, who will be speaking about nonviolent communication as an element of professional training. Kirilo Peletsky will speak. Good day, it's a pleasure to welcome you here. I want to share the presentation that I have.
Підкажіть, будь ласка, чи чуєте мене і чи бачите
Hope you can
презентацію?
hear me and you can see the presentation.
Видно і чути.
Yes, all good.
Супер. На жаль, не може бути присутнім очно
Unfortunately, I don't
презентації
have an access
сьогодні,
to
оскільки я на Erasmus навчанні
offline,
за кордоном на
I don't have a chance to
Хочу також подякувати
present
дуже сильно за цю конференцію медіацію,
offline. I want to
оскільки
thank the
маю
mediators
особистий
for this
інтерес
conference.
до
Now I'm
теми
a
медіації
participant of
і
Erasmus
українського
program,
вирішення
therefore I'm not presently
І
with you.
запевнити вас, що не
I
вийду за
want to
рамки
assure
свого
you
часу,
that I'll
з
not
собою маю секундомір і уважно слідкую за часом.
be
Тож, хотів
beyond the
сьогодні
schedule
почати
because I have
говорити про насильницьке спілкування в контексті
timer in front of me.
медіації.
So, nonviolent
Насильницьке
communication
метод
within
спілкування, розроблений американським психологом професором
communication.
Маршем
That is
Розенбергом,
what was developed by Marsha Rosenberg, that was based on empathy.
із таких речей, які
Out
взагалі
of the
блокують
things
насильницьке
that block
спілкування і
nonviolent
в цілому
communication
породжують якісь
and
конфлікти, це ярлики, які ми зазвичай вішаємо
give
на
rise to
людей,
conflicts,
і
it's
психологічний
usually
запас,
labels that we
на
use
яких у
concerning
нас зазвичай вистачає набагато більше, ніж для того, аби писати власні емоції і
the
почуття.
person. It's something that we have comparisons of ourselves and others. It's also demands instead of requests, even when the sentence is built as a request. At the end of the day, we don't expect a negative answer to that, and that automatically turns a request into a demand. Also, it's avoiding responsibility when we have to be responsible, but we don't want to be able to understand that, and we consider ourselves to be the hostages of the situation, and that's thinking from the punitive standpoint. We heard that mediation is quite a developed methods for settling conflicts that will be very actively disseminated in our country and in the world as a whole. It has its
переваги, які вже були названі, це добровільність, це
good
неформальний
advantages. It's
швидкість та
voluntary in nature, informal
Однак деякі види
communication and
медіації,
informal
деякі
approaches,
види
speed,
медіації,
and
ці
focus on
переваги
the
і
conflict
переваги
settlement.
можуть
So,
слугувати недоліками.
however, sometimes
На превеликий
disadvantages
сьогодні
can
зважити
be
швидкість вирішення проблеми із погляду на насильницьку
actually
комунікацію,
disadvantages,
керівництво
because if we look
сторони
into
якоїсь
the speed of this
рухається повільно,
procedure,
швидкість
and
швидше,
when, for
можна
example,
сказати,
the
що орієнтація
person went
саме
slower to
на
get there
швидкість
faster,
може іноді
this focus on the
передбачати
speed
втрату
might
різних інших важливих факторів та
actually
аспектів
lead to the
медіації
loss
для
of an
вирішення
important
конфлікту, як
factor of
емпатійне
mediation, such as
слухання,
empathy,
порозуміння
empathic
і
hearing,
так далі.
understanding,
Серед
etc.
переваг ненасильницького спілкування хочу зазначити те,
The
що
advantages of nonviolent communication is that it's aimed not only at settling the conflict, but at supporting the relationships beyond that. Mediator
часто треба багато часу
using
на те, щоб
nonviolent communication
донести
needs
людям,
sometimes more
що
time to
думки, що прийняття думок інших,
to
що
give
розуміння
the
думок інших, це
person's
не означає
understanding that
відмову від
understanding
власних
other
тверджень,
people's
думок,
position doesn't mean that you have to
ще
renounce your own
як
position, that
здатність
empathy
порозуміти
as an
конфлікт
ability to
людини,
understand
розуміти її
a
емоції,
person, to
це
understand
його
his or her
потреб.
opinions. It's not a renunciation of
Часто
our own needs and
в
goals.
медіації ненасильницького
Very often in
спілкування
mediation
потрібен час
and
для того, аби
nonviolent
люди
communication, we
змогли
need
висловити власні
to
потреби, власні почуття
give the
і
person time to
оминати ті
share their
фактори,
opinions, their
які
needs, and
впливають
avoid the
на
factors that influence
слабкість ненасильницького спілкування, які зазначив
the weaknesses
раніше,
of nonviolent communication that I mentioned before, such as comparisons, and give a clear understanding and an opponent who we have a discussion with what exactly the person feels and what actions he or she expects a party to a conflict to take.
Взагалі, метою
All in all,
користування
the
спілкування є
goal of a
встановлення
nonviolent
зразка між
communication
людьми,
is
оскільки
based on empathy
саме налагоджене
and
відверте
sincere
спілкування
connection between the
будує
persons,
подальший
because such
розвиток
sincere
і
communication
конструктивний
helps
характер
further
стосунків.
develop
Хотів би навести
in
приклад свого
the
студентського життя
resolution of
із
the
позиції
conflict. I'd
студента.
like
Можу
to give
сказати, що
the example
в
from student
університеті
life, and
бувають
from
різні
student
види
position we
конфліктів,
can
які
say
будуть
that there are different
притягнуті
types of
поза
conflicts
позичачами і
between the students
студентами.
and the
То
professors.
також дуже
Therefore,
важливо зазначити, що
it's
медіація
very
і
important to
вміння
say here that
вирішувати конфлікти
mediation and
слугують
being
дуже
able to
важливою характеристикою
settle
і
conflicts is an important
якістю і
characteristic
можливістю вирішити
and
конфлікти.
the
Як громадський
quality and
активіст, як
ability
студентський
to
активіст, голова
settle
правознавства
conflicts.
факультету, можу сказати, що
I can
в
say, as an
організації
active participant
також
of the
можуть
student
виникати
life,
дуже багато
that
різних конфліктів.
there are
І
many
часто
conflicts in the
Organizations can come up with different
university.
conflicts,
вміння
and the technique of
навички
communication
вирішувати
and the
конфлікти, бути
skills how to
аsertивними,
resolve the
мати
conflicts to be
професійний
assertive,
бекграунд, ви вже
a feeling
раніше
of
допомагали
comfort.
мені
It helped
вирішити ці
me to
конфлікти
sort these
конструктивно, як у
conflicts
в
positively in
межах
the
нашої команди,
frameworks
так
of our
і
team
за межами.
and
Це доволі
beyond
складний процес,
externally. And
який
that's a challenging
насправді
process.
хотів би
And in reality, I would
розвинути
wish
його більш
to
детальніше
dive in
і
more
покращитися
deeply
цих якостей.
and to learn these
В
skills.
висновку хотів би сказати
In
те,
conclusion, I would like
що
to say that
взагалі ці
in general,
методики ненасильницького
these
спілкування є доволі
methodological approaches
ефективними. Я
are
думаю,
quite
що
efficient, in my
медіаторів
opinion,
я
to
хотів би, щоб
use
вони поширювали
mediation,
їх
and I would wish them to spread
в
among
своїх практиках.
mediators in their practices. Thank you.
Дякую, пане Кирило,
Thank
за
you,
таке
Mr.
лапідарне,
Kirilletsky,
змістовне
for
визначення.
your full of
До
content
слова
definition.
запрошую
The floor
секретаря
is
вам
the floor is
моїй,
to my,
скажімо,
let me say,
колежанці,
let me call her
пані
colleague,
Христині,
Ms.
для
Christina,
оголошення
for announcing
і
the topic
фамілії та прізвища ім'я по батькові
and
наступного
ranks and names of the next speaker.
Дякую.
Thank you.
Запрошуємо нашого наступного
We are
спікера.
welcoming our next
Це
speaker,
Оксана Поліщук,
Oksana
кандидатка
Polishchuk, who is a
психологічних наук, доцентка
PhD
кафедри
psychology,
психології, факультету
doctor
педагогіки,
of
психології та
the
соціальної
Department of
роботи
Psychology and Social
Чернівецького
Work,
національного
Chernivetsky
університету
National
імені Юрія
University, named
Федьковича
by
з
Yuri
доповіддю
Fedkovich, and the
професійно-психологічне
speech on the
зростання
professional
медіатора.
growth of a mediator.
Дякую. Ми сьогодні багато
Thank you.
говорили про
There is a
медіацію,
lot has been
і
spoken about
я трошечки
mediation,
звернуся
and
не
let me
тільки
a little
до
bit
медіації
pay
як
attention
процесу,
to
а до
mediation as the
медіатора
process,
як
but also to
людини.
the
Тому
mediator as
що
the
все одно
person.
в основі
So
це є
still, in
людина, і
essence,
ми
it's a
говоримо
person,
про
it's a
неї
living
як
person,
про
and we're talking about this person as a
особистість. І
personality.
ця
And
особистість,
this
вона
personality is
постійно вдосконалюється, і
constantly
вона
improving
набуває нових і нових
and
навичок, і
reaching
моя
new
доповідь буде
goals.
саме
And
про
my
це.
talk will be
Як
about this.
все-таки відбувається
How to
професійне і
still,
психологічне
how
зростання
this
медіатора?
professional and psychological development of a
Ну,
mediator goes,
трішечки, да,
develops. A
фасилітація в
little bit,
медіації,
facilitation
фасилітативна
in
медіація,
mediation,
оцінювальна
facilitative
медіація.
mediation,
Це те все,
qualitative,
на чому
evaluative
ми
mediation.
опираємося,
This is
і
what we are based
що ми
on,
знаємо
and
про
what we
це, все
know
є в
about
основі
this,
роботи
everything
медіатора.
in
Да?
the
І
essence of work of a mediator,
що потрібно набути
and
людині,
what
як їй потрібно себе
person can
формувати,
achieve, how
це
the
про
person
те, як
should
вона повинна
shape
себе
themselves up. It's all
усвідомлювати.
about
Як
how
тільки
they
вона
could
починає
be
себе
aware of themselves.
усвідомлювати
As
як
soon as they start to realize themselves
спеціаліста,
as a
вона
professional
починає
specialist,
діяти
they
трошечки
start to act a
по-іншому,
little
тому
bit
що вона
differently
починає усвідомлювати
because they
кожен
start
свій
to
крок і
realize
кожну
every step they
свою
take
дію
and every
з
action
позиції не
with the
лише
position of not
професії,
only the
а з
profession,
позиції себе
but the
як людини.
profession of themselves
І
as a person.
тому, чому
And that's
професійне
why
зростання важливе для
professional
медіатора?
development
Сьогодні
is so
багато про це
important for the
говорили, і
mediator.
багато
A lot
є
has been spoken about it
різних
today,
речей, на які
and
ми
a lot of things
акцентували
that
увагу.
we paid
Бачите, і
attention to.
емоційна
You see,
стійкість, і
there's
емпатія,
emotional
гнучкість і
resilience, empathy,
креативність, і
flexibility
активне
and creativity,
слухання,
and
про
active
яке
listening,
теж мова
about
йшла
which
сьогодні.
we have
І
talked
тому
a
я
lot about.
особливо не буду на
That's
цьому
why I won't
зупинятися,
be
скажу тільки про
dwelling on
те,
this
що
too much. I will
дійсно у
only say that
медіатора як у
really,
людини
in
є
mediation as
свої
a
сильні
person,
і слабкі
they have
сторони.
strengths
Да?
and weaknesses.
Не дивлячись ні на що,
Despite
кожну з цих сторін
anything,
він має
every
якимось чином
aspect,
зрозуміти і
they have to
усвідомити.
understand
Так?
to wrap their
До
head
сильних сторін ми
around and become
відносимо
aware of
комунікативні
it.
здібності
As for
хороші,
strengths,
комунікативні
communicative
здібності
skills,
у
good
нас є.
communicative skills.
Кирило говорив
Кирило,
щойно про це,
who was
емоційний
speaking about
інтелект,
this,
який теж
emotional
звучав в
intellect,
одній з доповідей,
intelligence, which was
здатність
mentioned
бути
in one of the previous
нейтральним
topics,
і
the
так далі.
ability to
І
be
взагалі саме
unbiased,
головне це розуміти
impartial,
природу
and also
конфлікту. Що це
ability to
є таке?
understand the essence
Слабкі
of or
сторони
nature of the
це
conflict.
теж
Weaknesses
є ті
are
сторони,
also
на які
aspects
варто
that are
звернути
worth
увагу. Це
paying attention
схильність
to.
до
It's
емоційної участі в
inclination
процесі
to the
взаємодії,
emotional
це
involvement in the
труднощі в
process of
управлінні
interaction,
конфліктом.
difficulty in
І
managing the
низький
conflict, and
потенціал до
low level of
зв'язку. І от я якраз про цей низький
self-conscious.
рівень
And particularly about this
самоусвідомлення
low level
буду
of
говорити
self-conscious, I
трошечки
will be
більше.
speaking today a
Але
bit
для того,
more.
щоб його
But
пояснити, я буду
to explain
опиратися на
it, I will
таку
be
систему,
relying on the system
яка була в свій час
which was in its
запропонована
time
Девідом Колбом,
offered by David
який
Colbo,
запропонував
who
концепцію етапів
suggested the
професійного
concept of the stages
психологічного
of
зростання. Це оцей внутрішній
professional
коло.
psychological
Ви
development. It's this
бачите, що
internal
там є
cycle.
досвід,
You
аналіз,
could see that there are
теорія і
experience,
практика.
analysis, theory,
Чому
and
саме
practice.
на цей,
Why
якби на цю модель я
this
звернула
model
увагу?
I have
Тому
paid my
що
attention to,
Колб казав,
because
що це
Mr.
дуже
Kolb
важливо
said
для
that it's very important
навчання дорослих.
for
Ми з вами
education,
говоримо
for
про
educating
навчання
adults.
студентів,
We're talking about
але
students, but
студент, який приходить в
students
медіаційну
who
практику,
have come to become
ще
in
не є
the
тією
mediation
особистістю,
is not the
яка
personality
готова
yet
в повній
who
мірі
is ready
працювати.
fully to
Погодьтеся,
work.
правда?
Please
І
agree, would
тому
you?
оце
Wouldn't?
психологічне
So this
зростання,
way,
про
the
яке я буду
psychological development
говорити,
that
якраз
I will be
пов'язано
speaking
з
about
тим,
is exactly
як
connected
відбувається
with
в
how
циклічному плані
cyclically, in the cyclical way,
розвиток
the
психолога.
development
Я
of the
поки що на
psychologist.
внутрішнє
So
коло.
far,
Тобто,
internally, internal circle.
є?
What
Тут у
do we
нас
have?
є
Here we
конкретний
have
досвід
some specific
через
experience
рефлексійний
through
аналіз,
reflective
через
analysis,
створення нових
through
узагальних
creating
принципів,
new
тобто
generalized
теорія,
principles,
і
theory,
впровадження в
and
практику. Як тільки
putting this into
впровадились в
practice.
практику,
Once we
починається
implemented this into
нове коло.
practice, the new
Тобто
circle
ми
started.
ми отримали вже свій
What do we have?
досвід,
We have
який
a
пішов в
new
наступну
experience
практику.
that went on to
І
the new
тому я,
practice.
доповнивши
So,
це,
I
я
would like to add
запропоную
this.
ще один такий,
Let me
ще одну
suggest
таку частинку
one
цього.
more
Це етапи
part of this.
професійного
It's
психологічного
stages of
зростання на основі
professional
того,
psychological development
на основі
based
4
on
етапів
the
компетентності,
four
які теж були в
stages
свій
of
час
competence that were
запропоновані, і які
suggested
дуже
in its time,
цікаво
and
показують
it's very in a very
розвиток
interesting way.
людини
They
в
show the
будь-якій
development
галузі.
of the person in any
Перший,
sphere.
як
The first,
зазначено на слайді, це
as indicated in this slide, is
неусвідомлювана
not as
некомпетентність. Людина, яка приходить в
unrealized
практику,
competence. The
в
person
якійсь
who has
мірі не
joined
все
any practice
здатна одразу розпізнати,
isn't
не
able to recognize
зрозуміти
everything
повністю свої власні
and
обмеження,
understanding
свої
their own
можливості,
limitations, restrictions,
можливо, навички якісь
possibilities.
є,
Maybe some skills, they have
ще
them,
немає
maybe, but
достатньо досвіду
but
і
they don't
знань.
have enough
І
experience
тому,
and
якщо
knowledge.
людина
That's why if the person
усвідомлює
is conscious
те, що щось
that,
не так,
that something is
на
wrong
цьому етапі вона
on this
переходить на
stage,
другий етап,
they
який
go to the
називається
second stage, which is
усвідомлена
called
некомпетентність, коли вона
conscious
подумала про те,
incompetence,
що ж
when
все-таки
the
є
person
не
has
так.
thought, oh,
На
what is
даному
exactly not
етапі
right
медіатор
on
вже
this, at
починає
this stage, the
чітко
mediator
усвідомлювати
starts to
власні
clearly
обмеження,
understand
наявні упередження, які
their
теж
personal
можуть
individual
впливати на
limitations,
роботу,
restrictions, they can
але
affect the quality
ще
of their work,
на
but
даному
still,
етапі він
at
не
this
зовсім
stage,
може ними
he or
керувати.
she cannot control
Після
them
цього
or
іде
manage them. After that,
усвідомлювана компетентність.
conscious
Це
competence
вже
comes.
певний результат
It's a
того,
kind
що
of
відбувалося,
outcome or result
і
of what has
тому
been happening,
медіатор вже має
and that's
навички,
why the
має
mediator
знання,
has the
які
skills and knowledge
йому
that
дозволяють
allow for
усвідомлено
them to
виконувати
consciously
свою роль.
perform their role.
Тобто він зосереджується на своїй
They
поведінці, на
focus
своїх
on their
діях, на
behavior, on
своїх
their actions,
запитаннях.
on their
Він
questions.
свідомо їх
They're
задає і
consciously asking
контролює
those
весь
questions
процес.
and
Так?
having the more
Але
control of the
виходить,
process.
що
But what we
якимось
have
таким
is,
вищим етапом
but the
буде
higher
четвертий
stage
етап,
will be
це
stage
якраз
4.
неусвідомлювана
It's
компетентність. Неусвідомлювана
unconscious
компетентність – це та
competence.
стадія, де
Because
вже є
is
у
the stage
медіатора
when the
дуже
mediator
високий рівень
has
знань,
a very high
навичок,
level of knowledge and
які він
skills
здатний
that they are
впроваджувати
able
в свою
to
практику
implement
і
in their practice
дуже добре розуміє
and
все, що
very well
відбувається як в
understand what
процесі
is happening,
медіації, так
both in
і
the process of mediation,
володіє техніками
and
медіації.
also they know
Саме на
the
оцих
techniques of
останніх
mediation,
двох
and particularly on
етапах
at
усвідомленої
these two stages
компетентності
of
і
conscious
неусвідомленої
and
компетентності, я би
non-conscious
хотіла, буквально ще одним
competence.
реченням
Let me just
зупинитися в
wrap
тому
up in
плані,
one
що це
sentence.
є
What I mean is
рефлексивна
that it's a
компетентність і
reflexive
інтуїтивна
competence and
компетентність.
intuitive
Чим вони,
competence.
чим
How
вони такі цінні?
how
Вони є
are they?
цінні
What's the
тим,
value?
що
They're
вже
valuable
будучи
because
на цих
being
етапах,
at these stages,
медіатору,
the mediator
медіатор може
in a way can
якимось чином стати наставником
become
для
the
інших
guru or mentor
інших людей.
to
І
others.
останній
And
такий слайд,
final slide,
в чому переваги
what
професійного
are the
психологічного
advantages of
зростання
the
медіатора
psychological
в тому,
professional development
що
of the mediator is that
для
for well for establishing this competence, for improvement of this competence. It's important, important, every stage is important, and the mediator has to go through all of these, each of them. For their professional growth, the mediator reaches the level when they are able to perform as in the role of the mentors for the younger professionals. It could be also to be a good mediator, but not to be able to teach or to train. But also people may be able to train and educate others. The third one, competence is not the final goal, but is the process of constant development. That's why I said about constant cyclical ability, because as Miss Ola said, like in her school in Krok, for adults, it's more important to obtain new experience and and understanding in a different way, becoming conscious in a different way of what the new stage will be for the new step for the new stage. Thank you for your attention.
Шановні колеги,
Dear
наступний
colleagues,
наш спікер
next
долучається
speaker
онлайн.
joins
Тому
us
передаю
online.
слово,
So the floor is to Miss Lilia.
Слово надається пану Юрію
The floor is
Поповичу.
to Mr. Yuri
Це
Himkovich. It's the
Національний
University,
теологічний факультет
Greco-Catholical University, Mr. Prussian, Slovakia. The topic is educating, educating. Sorry, Mr.
Good morning.
Buongiorno
My
tutti.
name is Yuri
Доброго.
Popovich. I speak Ukrainian. Um, Дорогі колегині, колеги, не знаю, чи мене чути.
Dear colleagues, I don't know if you could hear me. I'm greeting everyone. I do apologize for my Ukrainian, which is not so perfect, but I would be doing my best to speak the way you could understand me well. I am a university professor of the Greek Catholic department in Brasov University, and our theological department is the only in Slovakian Republic, or in the space of in the Czechoslovakia. It has the probation of mediation. This program, I don't know how much time I have, how many minutes. I think I was given 6, 7 minutes, right? So I will, yes. So I will give myself, yeah. I could just see how long I've been into the speech. I do apologize. It's been 1 minute already into the speech, so I have something like 6 minutes left. Okay. This is the only program that which gives knowledge of probators and mediators, which prepares probators and mediation professionals. I heard lots of reports that my dear colleagues have been giving about your experiences and experience in Ukraine. And once, before the large-scale war, we were in the Kherson University. I don't know whether we have some Kherson University colleagues, but I saw, and today I heard a student from UNO, Anastasia Sobchak, and there will be a speech by Anastasia Yaremko. And Anastasia Sobchak was at our department in Razmy for 1 semester as long, and she studied and in our university, so she has an experience of our program. It's very important for everyone to understand, to be aware that the probation and mediation specialists have the comprehensive database of knowledge. Maybe for some of you, it will be an unexpected thing, but let me say in Ukrainian, it is a kind of surprise. I do apologize, possibly using some words. They're not Russian. I don't speak Russian for a long time. But if I'm using some words, it's my Carpathian dialect which intervenes. Okay. So please be aware that this program, the probation and mediation program, so that they could have comprehensive knowledge database, which encompasses criminology, psychology, prevention, crime projection, victimology, and sociology. And their professional approach must ensure desirable approaches to the civil mediation and also oversight over probation and mediation. I don't know whether in Ukraine, as far as I understand from the talks with my colleagues, so far in Ukraine, criminal mediation is not really well developed, is it? The main purpose of implementing probation and mediation in the courtroom, in the criminal, was to which encourages in decrease of people who who suffer punishment, protecting the rights and obligations of victims of crime, and plays an important part in development of just and just community. Dear colleagues, dear ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at how police and prosecution investigates crime cases. For all the apparatus of police and prosecution and all the employees of law and order, they focus on the criminals. If they have committed a crime, how to catch them, how to trace them, how to chase them, and to put them into arrest and to put them into prison. And not to think too much about the victim of this crime. And this is probation, renewal justice, restorative justice. They deal with this topic. And the employees or the mediators, they perform a very important and responsible and difficult role in communities. It's logical to perform this job, to have some requirements, have fundamental knowledge. They must include sociology knowledge, criminology, psychology. Professional approach is announced to make sure that their work provides results and outcomes while providing civil mediation and oversight over criminal policy. A bit into the context of the professionals of probation and mediation, beginning from 2006, when we were accredited program department, some department in the university, they provide the course, the training course. There was accreditation in 2005. In 2003, we went through another accreditation by the Independent Accreditational Commission. Our university obtained the right to accredit, to certify their programs. We have successfully went through the certification program by the Independent Commission. This was a very hard job to do, and somehow we pulled it off, and it yielded its fruit. And the creation of this program, about 550 employees of probation and mediation since 2003, where clear indication is the probation employee could be the Slovakian citizen who, among other things, obtained higher education of second grade and obtaining the master's degree in pedagogics, theology, and jurisprudence. I think in Ukraine we have to abolish this Soviet heritage in one more direction. It's theology, theological sciences. So we should not have what we used to have back in Soviet Union. So the theology is not actually science. And I think in front of you, you're faced with challenges, all the community, to join all the European standards in this respect, because the church at first was one that was based on, that founded its universities and performed a very good work. From that time, we 900 and something students graduated from our university who graduated. Now we renew our program with the University of Komenskego. It's in Bratislava, a very powerful university with a legal department, and we will have knowledge and diplomas and degrees so that our students could study there, and then they will come back to it. And we believe it will make this profession more attractive, like mediator and probator. There are lots to speak, but my time is over. Yep. I am happy to have been in this conference, even though online, because yesterday we had very nice conference. I couldn't arrive physically, but we have connections, which are very nice. We have signed agreement with Erasmus, with Ternopil University of Social and Humanitarian Department. So we're developing in this direction. If some scientific educational establishments have some questions, maybe some cooperation, striving for performance, we're ready to help with accreditation. And with this program, I'm moving forward. Slava to Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine.
Пане Юрію, дуже вдячні за чудову українську мову і за вашу людську позицію.
Thank you for your wonderful Ukrainian, and thank you for your position and for sharing the experience and that you suggest to help us further. It's indeed a pleasure that at this event we have active participation of our colleagues from foreigners, and hence we have different time zones. Now we'll give the floor to a colleague from the USA,
докторку філософії, магістра наук, психолога,
master,
тренерку з медіації,
the mediator on
та консультант.
the mediator, author, and mediator. We'll be speaking about the value of mediators in competition on mediation. Dear Mary, the floor is yours.
Lexavo Proximo. I'm going to be speaking in English today, so please forgive me. My Ukrainian is not good enough to be able to speak at this distinguished event. It is such a pleasure to join you, and I'm going to go ahead for expediency to go ahead and share my screen so that I can talk with you just a few minutes about the value of psychology training for students in mediation competitions. First of all, I want to thank everyone who's been a part of this, and the distinguished speakers that precede me, and those wonderful individuals who will be following me. It is an honor to be here. My background is that I am a psychologist, and that I have been working in the field of mediation for some part of my life for the last 20 years. I've also been working with mediation tournaments for over 20 years. Working with the International Academy for Dispute Resolution, which is the oldest international organization offering tournaments for students. And I wrote a book on the psychology of mediation that, at least in the States, is one of the first books that a psychology has written about what the mediation process is and how mediation and how research in psychology can inform mediation. Well, we included for students in the mediation who are coming in to be a part of mediation tournaments for a number of reasons. One, for them to learn how to follow the research and know there's been a lot of research about what makes us effective and as mediators. So we teach them what some of the research shows, and then helping them, because we know that research is going to allow them to be seen, to be heard, to help people be able to listen better, acknowledge personal issues that might come up, how to facilitate trust building, and certainly to help people learn how to facilitate individuals coming together to resolve their issues. So what's important in a mediation session at a competition is that the parties will have an opportunity to really meet with everybody at one time. There's been a trend in this country where individuals are starting to break off in caucuses for most of the mediation. And I think that does all of us a disservice, because what we really need is students to be able to learn to work with people together, so when they leave, they also have that opportunity. They also know how to bring people together. So the research, the impact, and I list four pieces on this particular slide. We know from the research that if the mediators keep the parties together, they're more likely to resolve the conflict and that the conflict will be lasting. For the majority of people who spend all their time in caucus, they end up within a year, if you do follow-up studies, they end up going to court on the same issue because it isn't resolved. We know that when people are in the same room, that they behave differently, and that we can help people in conflict with a real collaborative process. They learn to work together, and I believe they not only learn it at the mediation competition, or if we are mediators in our offices, but they can learn some things about listening and working with another individual that they can take out and use in their personal lives. They learn how to respond to emotions and listen to what people are saying. So let me touch on 3 keystones a minute in the field of mediation. The first one is listening, and I bet the distinguished speakers have already talked some about that, so I won't belabor the point. But I do want to say listening deeply is very important. That means listening just beyond the words, or listening to what they mean, not just what they say. Listen to what they don't say. Because being heard is powerful. And I tell all the students that I work with, and I don't know if any of my former students are on here today. For the last 3 years, I've been teaching a class for Ukrainian mediators and judges out of Nicholas Romero's University. And one of the things we work on together, all the judges and attorneys I've been working with for several years, is the power of listening, and how it's one of the deepest, most important skills, and yet it is something very few of us have any training in. Because listening is most of what we do. It is almost half of our communication. And so that means how important it is. The second one I want to mention has to do with vulnerability, because as mediators and for students in a competition or mediators in real life, it's important to realize and help the people realize that we're willing to listen and be vulnerable and honest. That does not mean telling all of the issues we have, but what it does mean is if someone challenges us, we don't shut down. We sit back and say, that's interesting. Help me understand. That's not what I meant. Please help me understand so that we can move forward together. It means we are willing to really listen and not be so defensive. It also means we bring respect. And we all know how important that is. But in mediation, and even in mediation competitions, all the mediation competitions I work with are international. And we have people from many, many different countries. And it's helping students really to layer that on, to respect and to let go of biases so they can help bring people together. If they learn to do it there, maybe they will be better at doing it on the world stage than some of us have. We know of the terrible war that's gone on in Ukraine, and I admire the courage and have lent my full support to all that is going on there. And we want students to learn to have that kind of compassion and empathy for people and for other humans so that we can learn to work out our issues together. And that also means some humility. I've listed some research that's up there, and interestingly, and I don't know when Mr. Yampolsky is going to be speaking, but I use his book. I've cited his book in several of my research papers and in my book. So I hope you get to listen to him, because he has a lot to say about de-escalating conflict. The concept that we are all connected, that we are all human, is something we don't ever want to forget. And we teach that to students in mediation. at the tournament. So what we try to do is help people to listen, not be defensive, and to learn to respect everyone. And isn't that what we're all about? These skills, when applied to mediation, are very, very valuable. But I'm going to say this to all of my dear colleagues who are on here today. They're also, if I can hit the right button, they are also leadership skills. They're skills that are important for every one of us, and that we don't want to forget them. We can choose to behave humanely, and that's what we teach students to do. Not to win at all costs, but the importance of being fair, learning how to work together, and to realize we're in this for the long game. Now, Maria Montessori indicated that most people in most situations do not educate for peace. But I would say this, I would say that in mediation sessions, we're educating for peace. I would say in mediation tournaments, in our heart, it's not to get students to competing and then learning how to beat each other, but it's helping them learn that competition is not the only thing, that we teach cooperation, collaboration, and that and a piece of humanity that we all share, and how important that is in our world today. Well, I realize I had a very short time today, and I want to honor the schedule we have. People, if I can get to the last slide, peace be with you, and it has been such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so very much.
Дякуємо дуже, пані Мері.
Thank you so much, dear Mary. I give the floor to moderate further to my colleagues
Дякуємо. Отже, ми
In,
запрошуємо нашу спікерку,
the
пані
offline
Наталію
session.
Калініну,
We give the floor to
кандидатку
Natalia
економічних наук,
Kalinina, the
доцентку
PhD
кафедри
in
менеджменту та інноваційного розвитку
economic
Бізнес-школи «Крок».
sciences. She will be speaking
Переговори як базова компетенція
about
керівництва, як
negotiations as a
зробити
basic
перемовини
skill, how
частиною
to
результатів
make the
власної
negotiations
діяльності.
part of the DNA of the
Доброго дня,
company.
колеги. Я дуже щаслива бути і вдячна
Good day, dear colleagues.
долі
It's a pleasure
і
to be here, and I'm
організаторам
thankful for the
конференції
fate and for the
за можливість
organizers of
бути
the
сьогодні тут, в цій
conference
прекрасній залі. І в цьому найкращому
to be
в
here.
Європі, як мінімум, університеті. Дуже дякую. Ну, самопрезентація – це важлива частина.
Presentation is an important
звичайно,
part,
будь-якої
of course,
презентації, але
but
я буду пропускати її.
I will be
Немає
skipping
того,
some of its
нічого.
points.
Буду пропускати її і скажу одним
And
реченням,
I will
що
just
за
speak
20
about it in one
років
sentence. For
плюс
20
в
plus
бізнесі, в
years in business and
менеджменті,
management,
в переговорах,
in
я бачила
negotiations,
багато
I've
чого
seen
і
many
маю право
things,
на те, що я
and
зараз
I
буду
have
говорити.
the
Моя
right to say what I'm going to say. My
моя
presentation
презентація буде
is
стосуватися
related
дуже
to
практичної
a
теми. Я не
very
буду
practical
говорити, що
topic.
треба
I
робити,
will
як
not
має
say
бути.
how
Ну, ми всі знаємо,
what it
хочемо
should look like, what we
прагнути
should
до
do,
цього.
but we
Але
all
я
are
хочу вам
aiming towards it. I
запропонувати
want to
із
suggest
власного досвіду,
to you from my
як це
own
може
experience how
спрацювати,
it can
який
work
є
and
алгоритм для
what is
того,
the
щоб
algorithm
зробити
to
компетенцію
make sure that the competency
переговорів
of negotiations
одною з ключових
is one of the
компетенцій
key
керівника.
competencies of the manager.
Це дуже важливо.
It is very
Знаємо,
important.
що таке компетенція, так?
Therefore,
Всі ми
let's
прекрасно
remember
знаємо,
what
що вона
competency
складається,
is.
ну, як
We'll
найбільше з
remember
двох
that at
елементів.
least
Це
it is
знання,
made up of two
так?
elements,
Це
knowledge
навички.
and
А
skills.
третя
And the third
складова яка?
component,
підкаже.
what is the third component?
Ми знаємо навички, знання, це дуже
We know
важливо. Це
knowledge
ми
and skills,
називаємо
it's very important that
компетентністю.
we call it
А
competence.
яка третя складова?
What is the third element?
Кажу, це мотивація.
It's motivation.
яка включає в
Motivation
собі
that
і
includes
персональні
both the
якості
personal
людини,
qualities of the
і,
person and
її
his or her
так, оце
attitude.
ставлення до того, що
the
ти робиш.
attitude towards what a person does. I'll be skipping some slides I prepared a lot of them, but I think that you wouldn't object to the statement by Ira Williams Artman that now it's life is negotiations is a norm of life, and we have nowhere to go from here. We need to agree on something every single day, in the street, at work, in family, everywhere. I think that you would agree to the fact that these four elements. Thank you for optimizing your report. I think that you'll agree to what we are saying. That is valuable for life, not just for business. I'm skipping this, running forward.
And I would like to say
What
why
should
it's
be
worth to
prioritized
prioritize
in terms of the skills and really
make
to
the
make sure that
competence of negotiations as the key
negotiation is a key competency.
competence of the leader, manager. These are the 5 reasons, and we know about them, how it all looks like. It's conflict resolution, it's establishing connections, it's the healthy communication, it's resolving, it's ability to agree. But how to make it happen? And I would like to offer this algorithm, how to get it done, to prepare for the negotiation. Could you please tell yourself sincerely, we are not preparing for negotiations, do we? We just go and then let it be, come what may. But in the business school, Krog, in the mediation school, in this negotiation school, we need to say переговори. It's a different word. In Ukraine, it's a different synonym. But negotiations is exactly the right term in the Ukrainian language. So coming back to this one, business school, Krog, we are teaching the algorithm of preparing for negotiations, because 99% of our students, whenever say, please do the negotiation using the algorithm, they come to the training and they say, we managed to agree only using this algorithm. To develop the strategy of the negotiations, and not one. The strategy is plentiful. If you are stumbling, if you are failing to move on, you need to develop plan A and plan B and plan C, and you also need to prepare it to listen, to ask relevant questions. We have talked a lot about it. To know your roles in your teams and how and so. But please come to our course and I will tell you what the roles in our teams are. And many of you don't even can't comprehend what it is like. Knowing the interest of your opponent, not the position, because in mediation we're not talking about the position, we're talking about the interest. And this is the key in negotiations. To talk over the problems here and now, not like what if, but it used to be before, but here and now, not the way it is in reality. To find the mutually beneficial solution. This paradigm, win-win paradigm, that we can't get used to, but we have to. Practicing every day and practicing it everywhere. In marketplaces, in while shopping, with husbands and wives, with children, with colleagues. Do you know that children are the best negotiators? The best negotiators, because they can manipulate. And then point 9, in order for the competence in the negotiation to be your DNA of your company, you need to embody it, to institutionalize it into the corporate structure. What does it mean? It means we have to write down your statements, your corporate code, any of your policies and rules, that we know what we know and what we know how to run the negotiations. This is the first step, how to overcome and resolve conflicts. And naturally, point 10, it's an urge you to learn from professionals, only from professionals, address to professionals. We are happy. We're happy. We'll show you how it works. Thank you for your attention and thank you.
Я вклалася?
Did I match my
Дякуємо,
time frame?
дякуємо за практичні поради і за дотримання
Thank you for your
таймінгу для
practicality.
особливо. Отже,
Thank you very
шановні
much.
колеги, наші наступні доповіді є онлайн. Передаю слово пані Лілії.
Дякую. До слова запрошується Наталія Кувалко, доктор юридичних наук, професорка кафедри фінансового права Київського національного університету імені Тараса Шевченка, заслужений юрист України, бізнес-медіаторка, адвокатка. Назва доповіді «Медіація як нова культура суспільного діалогу». Прошу до слова.
Дякую. Дякую,
Mediation is the culture of dialogue in the society. Good day, everyone, dear colleagues. It's good to be among you. Why did I choose this topic and what I'd like to tell you? I think that mediation is not just a procedure. It's not just one of the elements of alternative dispute resolution in a conflict. As for me, that is really a new culture of civilized dialogue in all areas of the society, where we can have certain room for the conflict resolution effectively and also prevents such conflicts. In my part, as representative of the academia, as a professor, I'd like to say that in the Institute of Law of the Kyiv-Taras Shevchenko National University, for many years I teach the special courses at the Department of Financial Law, the courses in mediation in financial law and in the tax situation. Our masters have access there, and it's indeed quite a pride that representatives of our students who have official governmental positions have different behavior in disputes and conflicts, because given what we have, we need to have some gaps in legislation, and in reality we have such graduates and they have certain positions, and it's clear that necessary. As in order to reflect to what speakers said about corporate culture, as I mentioned, I'm an academic and I'm a business, because now I'm also working in business. I'm working in Naftogaz, working with Naftogaz Ukraine, and based on big business that we have, to create alternative disputes that would help build a new culture of dialogue that helps to make sure that mediation and alternative dispute resolutions and conflicts is indeed the future. And we will cooperate with different counterparts and will advocate this culture, the culture of involving independent intermediaries whenever conflicts arise. Not to make sure that such conflicts don't arise again. As Diana said, we have huge discussions for such powerful community to make sure that mediation is a norm. Indeed, we need to be speaking about that, we need to be writing about that. But there are many different in enforcement proceedings. We spoke about in-house mediators. Therefore, I call on you to give recommendations and in values that we have all generated in a country, in the family, to make sure that it works. Therefore, I'm happy that you're here, for the fact that I'm here to make sure that we promote it, because I'm very grateful to the organizers. It's a very good endeavor. Thank you so much.
Він є дуже важливим.
You are indeed
особливо зараз,
working on a very
після
important
того, як,
direction.
Треба буде відновлювати економіку.
We, of course,
Вам
need
успіхів в цьому новому напрямі, в його поширенні.
to promote and
Завершальне
support this
слово
topic.
надається, це дуже так
Now we give
добре,
the floor
аспіранту другого року
to
навчання,
the
професору.
PhD student
Спеціальність публічне
in the
управління
second year who
адміністрування,
is working in public
Державного
administration
університету
and
нашого
public
славетного міста Запоріжжя. Тема
public relations from Zaporizhia about
практик в управлінні
application of mediation
медичного
practices
спорту
in the cases involving these military staff concerning their family members. Hello, hope we can hear you. Yes.
Якщо можна, мою презентацію вивести на екран.
Якщо технічна служба не зможе, я тоді вам допоможу, пане Дмитро.
Да, я буду
If
вдячний.
the technical support doesn't help you, we will help you. Just give us a second.
Ну що ж, доброго дня, вельмишановна спільнота. Дозвольте
Good day,
висловити
dear
щиру
colleagues.
вдячність за організацію такого
Thank you so much for organizing this event.
демократичним, та повагу до тих, хто уможливив його проведення, наших
However,
воїнів та волонтерів.
I see that it's very important to implement mediation in our areas of life, but we also need to think about how we can apply mediation in situations involving the military staff. For me, as a person who comes from a big family that has huge experience and who is involved in mediation, is indeed a very deep has very deeply involved aspects. We have chosen a democratic model. What we hear about Russia is that it's an autocratic state and imperialistic policies. We see that it full-fledged aggression against Ukraine. And therefore, we see that as of 1992, we see that our country has not yet come fully back to census. However, we see that since 2014, we see more and more people in the army. Therefore, a huge people who are involved and who will be useful for mediation practices. It seems important to have a special mention for women who are fighting in the army because they face especially huge workload. We need to make sure that they get proper ammunition, etc. And such practices come back from many, many years ago. Many social and cultural aspects sometimes have their ups and downs. At the end of 20th century, we had especially stronger interest to that, not only among the collective West, but from Spain and or from Japan and from other countries also. Therefore, we see that we observe less conflicts in society, and mediation is actively developing in Ukraine. All the while, we can see some attitudes in the society towards mediation. Efficient management is impossible without rational approaches, and mediation practices need to be able to address the problems. Therefore, we need to see the rationale of adapting these practices. The rationale of these mediation practices are correlated with conflictology, and when we see a basic interrelation between mediation practices and social and economic aspects, we see the development of certain groups. We see that there is exponential growth, new growth factors, and more conflicts in the society. Applicability of mediation practices can be observed in different types of conflicts that given quite recent the fact that they appeared quite recently. Therefore, any person doing such activity can be at risk of such conflicts. Therefore, it's important to apply. We represented the map, and now we need to correlate it with other factors. Because of the full-scale invasion, it has turned into a generator of special areas where there is heightened applicability of mediation practices. Therefore, if we don't start applying it at all levels of interaction with the involvement of the military staff, of the veterans, it is a must that we need to give this economic and social aspects. Therefore, when we speak of mediation, we need to understand that it's going to be Dear Dmitro, it's at the end of 2020, or that shows that we have more conflicts, and we need to make sure that we need to increase the level of mediation among the military staff. We need to say that right now we have all the preconditions for the high level of application of applicability of mediation with the involvement of the military staff, including veterans and their family members. However, right now we see that potentially there are a lot of people involved in the application of these practices. Therefore, looking at the background, mediation, given the fact that I'm a master in mediation and practicing mediator, I invite you all to work with me, and you can please write here. And I'm open to your questions and suggestions. Thank you, dear Dmitro, for your activity. I give the floor to the organizers. Thank you, dear colleagues. Our first panel discussion is coming to an end. I'm especially thankful to everyone. And first and foremost, my online co-moderator, Lidia Nesterenko, who is a doctor of legal sciences representing Donetsk National University and is a member of the Association of Legal Clinics of Ukraine. Thank you, dear Lilia. Thank you, dear Christina. Dear colleagues, now we have one colleague, Henry Polski, Doctor of Law, Professor and Practitioner from Virginia Polytechnic University, from Blacksburg, Virginia, from the USA. The floor is yours.
Вітання, шановні колеги. Мене звати Генрій Ян Польський.
Welcome, dear colleagues. My name is Henry Jan Polski.
Я буду розмовляти сьогодні по-англійськи, але ж я з
We'll
Києва.
be speaking in English,
Починати по-українськи.
but I want
Зараз
to
я перейду
start
на
with the Ukrainian. Now I'll be using English.
So, dear colleagues, thank you for inviting me. Again, I'm coming from Virginia Polytechnic University, Virginia Tech. And so I am going to be talking to you about bringing trauma awareness into mediation. And if I can share my screen, let's see. Can you all see my screen? Can you see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So I'd like to talk about bringing trauma awareness into mediation. And here, I would like to start with this image. And in starting with this image, it's very startling because this image is showing people who are highly successful, who are at the top of their careers, and yet who committed suicide within just a few months of this picture being taken. So in beginning to the presentation and beginning how we think about trauma awareness, the one premise I would like to introduce is that we know a lot less about other people than we think we do. We know a lot less about other people than we think we do. And as we talk about trauma awareness, the principle, the value that I would like to focus on is the value of compassion. The value of compassion, which I define as deep, infinite connection with another person's humanity. So there is no them, there is only us, combined with the knowledge that we can never truly know or experience what someone has lived through. Deep, infinite connection with another person's humanity, combined with the knowledge that we can never truly know or experience what someone has lived through. So there is inclusion and deep humility. And this becomes critical as we think about approaching mediation with trauma awareness. So let's talk about trauma. Let's talk about trauma. Because actually, when we think of trauma, defining what it is not as simple as it may seem. So first, let's look at this definition from Dr. Bruce Perry, one of the leading experts on trauma and trauma-aware practices from the United States. Trauma is any pattern activating the stress response system that leads to an alteration of how the system functions. Now, the definition from the US government: individual trauma results from an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has lasting adverse effects on the individual functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. And so moving from here, we have to realize that trauma is not about a particular event or circumstance. Rather, it is about impact this event and circumstance has an individual. Which brings us in terms of how we approach this in mediation. How do we bring trauma awareness into mediation and other ADR practices? And here, what I'm going to focus on is this. What I'm going to focus on is the idea that trauma awareness is not a switch that we press on and on. It's not something that we apply with some people and not apply with other people. Trauma awareness is the way that we have to practice everything. Trauma awareness has to be at the very, very core of our work, regardless of who we're dealing with, regardless of who our clients are, regardless of how the parties present. Because parties may not display any visible signs of trauma, and yet be suffering from immense trauma. And of course, with populations that you're dealing, we have to assume that everyone has suffered from some sort of trauma. So then how do we bring trauma awareness into our work? And as I'm saying on this slide, ultimately trauma awareness is about creating and holding space where people can feel comfortable and where they can move from reacting to conflict with fear, with avoidance, with aggression, to responding with strength, with clarity, and with compassion. So how do we actually do that? And here again, I define, this is where we distinguish reaction and response, as reaction being attempt to escape or control whatever is triggering us. Where is a response is an appropriate action which arises from an undisturbed state. So what do we do? How do we bring trauma awareness into mediation and into working with conflict? And here I'm going to introduce 4 principles of conflict transformation, which can help us approach our work from a trauma-aware space. And here's the first principle, and this is the most important one. And this is what I refer to as tuning inward. And here we are talking about the practice of mindfulness. However, very traditional view of mindfulness is that we do mindfulness as a way to feel better. And my invitation here is we start doing mindfulness as a way to get better at feeling. Now, when we're talking about tuning inward, we're not just tuning inward, and this is first for practitioners, for us. before we even do any work with other people, we have to be very, very intentional about tuning in to ourselves so that we can develop that capacity for feeling, capacity for being more sensitive in a sense that we start sensing where people are. And tuning inward also means that we start tuning into the spaces where we are. And actually, very intentionally, when we have the ability, designing our spaces, even our physical spaces, in such a way where they're trauma aware. And in fact, here in the United States, there is now a whole movement on trauma aware and trauma informed design. I have some information on it, and this is something that I invite you to even consider bringing into your physical spaces. The next principle is observation without evaluation. As we are listening to our clients' stories, we have to be very, very careful in bringing any sort of evaluation as to any experience, and actually just creating space for them to be able to process their story. And this means we slow down, and this means we practice listening as a way, almost as a spiritual practice. We listen to their story, whatever it may be, being very, very careful, very, very careful, without bringing any sort of evaluation, without bringing any sort of way to move them from that story. And then there is expansion. That's the third principle. And this is where, through very intentional trauma-aware questions, we start helping our clients to move from positions, which is most of the time when people are in trauma, they're going to be very, very positional. They're going to be focused on very, very immediate circumstances, to and through interests, which is the reason why we hold the positions, to and through emotions, to and through values. So getting into what is most important for them. And finally, and most importantly, to needs. Helping people we work with identify their needs and focusing on those needs as we go through the mediation process. And finally, there is exploration. And this is where we start bringing curiosity. And this is where we help our clients to begin to move a little bit from the story and consider the broader context, and engaging with complexity, nuance, ambiguity, uncertainty that are inherent in every single one of us as human beings, and certainly are inherent in all of our experience, but something that becomes very, very difficult for people to engage with trauma. And so as I conclude my presentation, I think I'm getting close to time. Here is the design framework in terms of tuning into spaces, and you can find information on that. And then just to illustrate this important need for us to move from positions, because that's just the tip of the iceberg, especially when we're dealing with any sort of trauma, and engaging with needs. And in my experience, these are the seven needs that are present in almost any conflict interaction. And if we can engage with that, then we can fundamentally transform how we're dealing with the situation. So again, I realize that I'm at time. So I'm going to open myself to any questions, any comments, any concerns that folks may have. And thank you again for this amazing opportunity to share this work with you.
Щиро вдячні, пане Ямпольський, за такий глибокий
Mr.
і
Yampolsky,
глибокий
we're grateful to you for such a huge,
розклад
immense,
світу
in-depth
медіації. Дякую.
of the
Отже,
world of
шановні колеги,
mediation. So, dear colleagues, with a
обов'язково я
feeling of
передаю
accomplished
слово
task, I'm giving the floor to the
другої
moderators of the
дискусії,
second panel discussion,
пані
Ms.
Лідії Нестеренко,
Lidia Nesterenko,
координаторці
who is the
медіаційної
coordinator of
служби,
the
керівниці
Mediation Service. She's the
навчально-наукової
head of the
організації
Scientific
правової та
Laboratory of Mediation and
юридичного
Arbitration
факультету
of the Legal
Чернівецького національного
Faculty of the
університету
Chernyvetsky National
імені Юрія
University,
Федьковича,
named
медіаторці,
after Fedkovich,
та пані Мар'яні
and also
Голинській,
to Mariana Golynska,
координаторці медіаційної
who is the
служби
coordinator of the
Львівського
mediational
торговельно-економічного
service
університету.
of the Lvivsky Commercial University. You're welcome. Thank you. We are swiftly moving to the final tones of our meeting. The program, the agenda was really rich. We're going to have lots of reflections. I think I would prefer everyone to be virtual live. And I think lots of you, we could have a chance to communicate live. Okay, I won't, please bear with me. I know that lots of people have the train to catch. So somebody would like to prefer to walk around the wonderful city of Chernihiv. So let's, without further ado, let's get down to work. Miss Kolomytsky, Kievsky Polytechnical University, named after Sikorsky. The topic is Value Foundations of Mediation in the Forming of Social Trust in the community. Let me remind you about timing. Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'm pleased to join the community who mutually will be elaborating the interesting experience and practice. And I would like to remind you that mediation was thought as a project, interdisciplinary project. And I would like to share my experience of mediation from the point of view of sociology, because I also represent Kiev Polytechnic University, and formally speaking, my colleague shared with you. I would like to pay your attention, though, to a kind of outlook perspective, what we sociologists see by mediation and what values we put in while providing trainings to students of mediating services. Okay, so the value foundations and establishing trust in realization in educational environment. Social trust is the basic fundamentals of the social structures, social community, cohesion. Let you be not misled by the general non notion of the trust as a social object, which is based on the presumption of knowledge about that, and with the ability to predict, foresee, or influence the actions of the subject. In our context, though, social trust is fundamental, is the social glue that allows social structures to function. It's the guarantee of stability and harmony. And mainly, I don't want to mention, to enumerate those theory gurus. In the end, I don't know nothing more practical than a slim, well-built theory. But let me say a couple words of how social trust is important for functioning of a community. Social trust is viewed on several important levels: interpersonal level, institutional level, and finally, on the level of systematic level. And absolutely in all levels, irrevocable attribute is those values of mediation. And when we're speaking about our students, about mediation, we know the scheme of the conflict, the iceberg of the conflict, where the tip is our positions and below our needs and interests. So for us, in mediation, to the product that has to serve on top of it, the tip of the mediation procedure and the technique, but the fundamentals are values. Without values, without culture of mediation, we cannot speak about the fact that we will be building out the mediation as technology as the procedure. And namely, I seem like the mission of everyone who deals with mediation in the educational establishment, exactly to form the value, the culture, with the help of which the society will have the increased demand for mediation in the educational establishment. We will start to have more practices, etc. I delved deep into my thesis. I don't want to go too deep now, but thanks to the efforts of Ms. Ruslana Gavriluk and Mr. Petro Patyshkivsky, we have wonderful outcomes. Mediation as value. And there are characterized certain three presumptions, because mediation doesn't come out of the will of one or another subject. Mediation came as an important response to the social request that had existed in the mid of 1920s. And these mediations are connected with the anthropocentric values. Middle of the 20th century returned a man, a human to a human being, freedom of choice, freedom of action, responsibility for themselves, and responsibility for their own conflict, and if responding to being responsible for constructive resolution of the interaction with other people. In the thesis work, there is a very interesting pretext, very interesting presumptions, like basic aspects connected with mass, massive challenges that community as mass imposes challenges to human beings. So the person is kind of dissolved in the community, and mediation is a kind of response to the possibility for the human being to be dissolved in the masses. It's like responsibility for their own conflict. And namely, I would like to say, speaking about one's own conflict, being responsible, speaking about the resolution of this conflict, we are speaking about this responsibility is formed in the educational establishments. Okay, here I may speak about my story for eternity, but you, as the moderators, please wave me and give me a sign that I am running out of time, will you? Okay, thank you. Maybe we are speaking about values, we're talking about anthropocentric value of mediation. And now let's speak about where we need to seek this value. It's understandable that educational establishment is the powerful platform and pillar where we can expand and form this value. So, for example, on the basis of our university, we have a pilot project. We created a mediation of conflict management, like a selective discipline, like optional. And we don't train them to be classical mediators. We train them to understand the values of ecological solution of complex situations, the value of responsibility for their conflict. And we have a huge hope that in the end, we will be happy. Huge technological university to infect so-called everyone else. So in particular, this conference is all about to infect all educational establishments. People are sharing. And let me say, at the end of my speech, it was great to get involved to the processes. And I'm hoping that in about 10, 15 years from now, we will be able to speak how productively, how mediation develops on all subjects at university, how people have adopted, accommodated this anthropocentric and human as a measure, and how stable our communities, flourishing, congruent, harmonious, and coherent. So that's why, once again, huge thanks to organizers, and particularly to this location of the Chernivtsi University, for your gathering us here, and you are allowing us to share, to infect people with, and to infect people with the good insights and their visions. Thank you very much for attention. I try not to abuse your attention and time. Thank you very much. Thank you for such an inspirational speech. And let's move on further to your speech. We would be happy to welcome some students' master degree of the Lvivsky Commerce University, Goran Kornazar and Vasil Timkiv. You're welcome. Hello, everyone. Let's start our presentation, our speech on the part of development of mediation and popularization in the university. I would like to ask to switch on the presentation, please. Yeah, thank you. Mediation as an alternative method of conflict resolution is increasing its value in the current community and in community landscape. This is focused on reaching mutual solutions while inviting intermediary. Mediation not only allows us to unload this court system, but also helps to expand in the community the dialogue and mutual understanding. We made a little video where we asked students concerning their awareness in terms of mediation. I would like to welcome you to watch it. There is absolutely no sound on the video. I can't interpret.
Медіація – це не просто спосіб вирішувати суперечки. Це техніка, що ми спілкуємося. Як ми розуміємо, це процес рішення на можемо згадати, що є медіація, як ми її сьогодні ми вчили справжньо. А мова на розгляд наскільки
Щоб у вас виникали у будь-якій ситуації конфлікти чи високово до медіації?
Так, дякую. Це було невеличке дослідження, яке ми провели.
Thank you. That was a short research that we did, and I would like to also highlight the importance of the mediational educational importance because it has future implications and importance. So that's why the universities contributed a lot to the development of mediation, providing the mediation as a subject in its educational program. You will also lead the research. Besides our video, we also send to the students the Google Forms. About 500 students took part in the questioning research, and the question was, is mediation part of your training? 86% said yes, we have mediation training in the universities. Okay, if we're talking now about what is currently these days in the universities, there are many approaches to mediation. In many countries, including Ukraine, respectively, mediation is integrated in the educational curriculum as a separate subject or as component of the alternative conflict resolution course. In leading USA and European universities, there are specialist centers for mediation that not only provide preparation of professionals, but also the communities, and also they circulate the mediation among the people. Also speaking about the mediation in the development of the lawyers, a particular subject of the universities definitely encourage the development of popularization of mediation in the universities by the mediation of using mediation as a subject. As you could see, maybe you heard it earlier, about mediation, the answer to this was by 90.4%, so the answer is positive. Maybe you've heard about this before. To prepare mediators, not only in the legal sphere, but also in the adjacent areas, sociology, social works, and also in psychology. Also, I would wish to say about the first pioneers in 2003 in Kyiv Mahila Academy. There was a course started on the practical application of mediation among students. Let me not speak about, because there was founded
We had the first educational program in the Kyiv Polytechnic University named after Sikorsky, but Andrei covered it in more detail at the very beginning. And according to the state standard of the higher education in law, the second master's level education and approved by the Ministry of Education and Science, one of the mandatory competencies for lawyers is being able to use mediation and other out-of-court dispute settlement tools. Also, to finalize, would like to say concerning the prospects, it's going to be a general conclusion. Introducing mediation in universities has huge potential by implementing practical skills, because the universities can contribute to the fact that by implementing mediation in educational programs, they can provide better practical skills, because theory is much different from practice. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for being able to address you here. Thank you. We have indeed very creative youth. It was interesting to see not just one university, but representatives of several universities were supported. And we believe that thanks to such student community, the mediation has the future. And now we'll be able to hear where else mediator skills can be useful. Now I give the floor to Katerina Karashchuk, head of the Committee of the Private Enforcement Officers in Ukraine on Mediation and Other ADRs, Private Enforcement Officer of the City of Kyiv. Good day, good evening, dear community.
Виконання судових рішень.
The enforcement of judgments, as we all know, is the most important indicator of the efficiency of the justice system. According to the Supreme Court of Ukraine, right now, in the cases of obligatory imposing obligations, we have some low levels of the enforcement of judgments. In 2020, 99.8%, in 2021, 35.1%, in 2022, 21.6%, and in 2023, 31.3%. It's quite often that the parties to the enforcement proceedings have some disputes about the enforcement of judgments and some complaints about the private enforcement officer throughout the enforcement proceedings. Global practices show that in order to improve the activity of the POs, we can use mediation both out of court structured confidential procedure where parties throughout the mediator try to prevent the rise or deterioration of the conflict. Mediation is especially effective at the stage of enforcement proceedings. Has some benefits. First of all, it's optimizing the PO's activity, having less state expenditures related to the enforcement of judgments, and the parties to the enforcement proceedings have a chance to choose between the decision reached with involvement of mediator, or they can arrive at it on its own. They can also maintain good business relations without going to the side and starting the litigating activity. It should be mentioned that in order to effectively use mediation at the stage of the enforcement proceedings, we have a number of impediments. The fact that the law doesn't have the obligation to inform the parties about mediation, legal aspect, the fact that no details and requirements to the mediator in the enforcement proceedings. From the HR perspective, it is not enough mediators who know the specifics of the enforcement proceedings. The activity of the Committee of the Mediation and other EDRs are aimed at addressing these challenges, and this committee functions under the Association of the Private Enforcement Officers of Ukraine. For now, we have the first positive result on implementing mediation in the enforcement proceedings. In the period throughout from the end of December 2023 and to the February of 2024, out of the 31 complaints, the complainants have withdrawn their complaints thanks to the mediation. Therefore, mediation in enforcement proceedings has turned out to be efficient. The Code of Professional Ethics of the Private Enforcement Officer highlighted positive use of mediation at the stage of enforcement proceedings and provided for the need of the private enforcement officer to facilitate meeting the interests of the parties by consensus and by enforcement of judgments. And the actions of the private enforcement officer need to meet internationally recognized ethical standards of mediation and the basic principle of the ethics of the private enforcement officer. The Mediation Committee, under the Association of Private Enforcement Officers of Ukraine, work at improving the efficiency of mediation and the enforcement proceedings. The primary problems that need to be resolved seem to be establishing requirements and limitations for the mediator in the enforcement proceedings, the participation in the organization of training of the mediators in the field of enforcement proceedings, and working out the proposals on amending legislation. The law on mediation provides general requirements to the mediator. At the same time, it would be good to foresee the fact that the enforcement officer should be allowed to act as mediator in the private enforcement officers. It is provided for in Article 3 of the law on notaries. It should be mentioned that the enforcement officer might not be interested in involving the intermediary into the enforcement proceedings because the enforcement proceedings is quite a specific area. Therefore, it would be interesting to look into the international experience and implementing these practices in Ukraine, in particular in Albania, Northern Macedonia, and other countries. The private enforcement officer can act as a mediator in the enforcement proceeding that this officer is in charge of. It would maximize not only the efficiency of the enforcement proceedings, but would also improve the interest of the mediators and the interest of the private enforcement officers to be better at mediation skills. Also, at the stage of litigation, in our opinion, the Association of Private Enforcement Officers of Ukraine needs to speed up its efforts in training the private enforcement officers. It would be interesting to work here with universities and institutes that, according to Article 10 of the law on mediation, have the right to prepare mediators, to develop the training programs, educational programs, and provide free of charge
12 листопаду
training of mediators for training for mediation for the private enforcement officers who are interested in that. We also had a training event dedicated to improving enforcement proceedings in the Association of Private Enforcement Officers, attended by 70 private enforcement officers, and it shows that the private enforcement officers are very much interested in learning the mediation skills. The Association of Private Enforcement Officers of Ukraine also needs to create a register of special mediators who have been through training and received certificates. Here we need to use the analogy with the law of Ukraine on the notaries. So we can conclude that preparing and training mediators for the work in enforcement proceedings has its future prospects and would improve the enforcement of judgments in order to make the application of mediation and the enforcement proceedings in Ukraine more efficient. Thank you for your attention. Thank you so much, Katerina, for this address and for the emphasis that you put. Actually, quite often we hear that. It is confirmed when we talk to the representatives of the Ministry of Justice and our students who work in the enforcement service that the skills that they got is very useful, they are applicable, they do not collect dust on the shelves. I give the floor next to the speaker who will be joining online. Actually, we here remember the speaker in our department. We feel awe. Our students always are very much inspired because the love to mediation that Jan van Swieten gave to our students is manifest up until now, and we have your former students here, and they are either teaching at our department or they are doing PhD research. So the floor goes to Jan van Swieten, professor in mediation and negotiation, certified mediator, and the rector of the Netherlands Business Academy. Are you with us? Dear Jan, are you with us? Please tell us if you're here, dear Jan van Swieten. The floor should go to you. We cannot hear you for now. Are you with us? For now, we don't have Jan with us.
Hello, do you understand me?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, we hear you.
You hear me? Okay, then I will try to share my screen. Let me see whether it works. Why doesn't it work? Let me try again. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Can you see the screen or not?
No, we don't see it.
You don't see it.
Oh,
Maybe now?
now it's okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, do I have the right presentation? I hope it is. As some of the previous speakers, I have to apologize at the start because I have to do it in Dutch language. Since 4 or 5 months, I'm trying to learn how to speak Ukrainian, but it is so terribly difficult. So I really sympathize with all the Ukrainians living in the Netherlands at the moment because they have to learn Dutch language, and it is, for me, a hell of a job. So first, let me ask to the participants, do you know where the Netherlands is? Because for many people, this is quite unknown. Nowadays, maybe a little bit better. This is Ukraine, and that's the Netherlands. A very big country, as you can see. So the total wide of the Netherlands is only 250 kilometers, and 2/3 of the country is below sea level. And if we compare it to Ukraine, it's basically nothing. In total, you're almost 17 times bigger than we are. But as it comes to mediation, I think we have something of a head start to Ukraine because we started way earlier. And I think, at least for me, as the former chairman of the Mediators, so I'm a bit biased, I do admit, but I think the success of the Netherlands is basically in our way of thinking about mediation. And this is also represented in the education, which is the main part of my speech today. So if we look at Italy, there they decided to have mandatory mediations connected to the courts. So before going to court, you must go to mediation. This looks very nice for the mediators. You have a lot of mediations in the courts. But if we look at the numbers in the Netherlands, there are only 3,500 court mediations per year on a total of almost 1 million. So for us, we chose another direction. And the main reason is if you make it mandatory, if you connect it to the legal, to the courts, then people will see it as something legal. And we don't want this. So we only try to stimulate mediation, but basically make it something of society, of citizenship. And I think this was successful. So if you look at the number of mediators in the Netherlands, only 1/3 of mediators has something to do with a legal background. So from the total of about 3,000 mediators we have nowadays, there are only 700 people who are lawyer or something like that. The rest is business people, psychologists, etc. You can also see that somewhere around 2012, we had a huge drop in the number of official mediators, a drop in the number of people registered. First, let me say that we firmly believe in unity. So we only have one register for the whole country. Of course, we have a lot of different associations, but in total, everyone is in the same register. But in 2012, we decided that quality should be raised a lot. So in 2012, the quality demands were much higher, and therefore the number dropped with almost half. But the number of mediations went up. So with less mediators, we did more. So we have about 200,000 official mediations per year, more than 1 million informal mediations. That means mediations which are not officially registered in the central base. And more than 150,000 people are trained on mediation. If we look at the educational system on mediation, you must have at least bachelor or master basics in whatever direction, doesn't matter. Then you have to do a basic training, 23 blocks of 3 hours. You have your exam training. You can go to the national exam. You can do the assessment. And the assessment is really of a top level of a very experienced mediator. Then you can be registered. You can specialize yourself. And to do all this, we have about 32 institutes to do it. And of course, also these institutes are evaluated all the time. This was the basics. But in my 10 golden rules, rule number 5 is take it serious. I always ask people, can you imagine a lawyer or a psychologist being trained in just 23 blocks of 3 hours and then being at the same level? So you cannot just depend on the basic education of people. Mediation is a separate profession. So it needs a separate training. Thank you, Dmitro. Exactly my idea. So the big game changer is that if you want to take it serious, you have to bring it to the universities. You have to bring it to bachelor and master education. And this is now what is happening, even without the mediators knowing it in the beginning. So the universities just started. And of course, now it comes more and more together. So what is the big game changer in this? What are the challenges in the Netherlands at the moment? At this moment, the average age of a mediator is about 53 years old. And now young students, 22, 23 years old, come in as mediators. Is this possible? Experienced mediators, of course, say this is not possible. You need life experience to do it. But my simple reply will always be, okay, but we have 23-year-old psychologists and lawyers. Can they also not perform? The second is, universities are paid for or financed by the ministry. Now it's all in the private institutes. So doesn't mean that the private institutes can no longer compete. All the knowledge on mediation education at this moment is in the private institutes. So what about this? But I think the companies show us how it works. So in the companies, we have nowadays 3 levels. So this is the chart of ING Bank, one of the biggest banks in the Netherlands, about 15,000 to 20,000 employees. And they have 3 levels. The lowest level is the managers and the HR
Якщо мене
department.
чути, у нас час трошки.
Sorry?
Time is go on.
Time is running out.
Okay. I will be fast, or do you want me to stop already?
Okay.
Yeah, you want me to stop? Should I stop at this moment?
Go on, but finished if you can.
Okay, I will finish after this sheet. So there are 3 levels. The first level is the managers, and they are still trained by the institutes. And level 2 or 3 are the real mediators. Level 2 is internal mediators of the organization, but they are registered formal mediators. And level 3 are the external mediators. So this is a big change. And then to finish it, we now really bring it to society by training young people with simple basic trainings, but also with full trained mediators. And we do this by training people in schools and sports clubs. So, okay. Let me go.
Thank you.
I will finish.
Oh, yeah, слава Україні, героям слава. Thank you, Jan. Дуже дякую Яну, тому що справді
Thank you, Jan. We're grateful because this topic, which was raised, education as the factor of change in the mediation, is exactly what we are contemplating, also in Ukraine, so it echoes back to us very, very well. Additionally, by the way, this is a monthly event of mediation in Ukraine, and the topic is exactly the quality of mediation. So thank you, Jan. Thank you. And the word is to Christina. We invite our next speaker, Anna Nichai. She is a doctor of law, the head of the scientific university named after Buhaya. The challenges of the profession today. You're welcome. Thank you, dear colleagues. I'm happy to see, thank you for invitation, for the opportunity to speak my mind. I would feel easy to speak about my topic after Mr. Jan, because he raised the question which I highlighted as one of the challenges of the profession of the mediator job in Ukraine. Let me start with that mediation today in Ukraine, it's also one of the key instruments of alternative conflict resolution, but it's in active growth. Despite the fact that for over 30 years we know what mediation is, we have heard a lot about it, and even we've got professionals who held mediation beginning from the time when Ukraine became independent in 1991. But now when we started to ask what is the awareness among people about mediation is relatively low, and I would say I heard about mediation. It's not the same as I have used mediation or I'm ready to use it. So today I would like to speak about what challenges are there in mediation to provide what Jan was speaking about, quality process of mediation. Let me mention only 3 challenges and let me just speak my mind about how we can deal with them. First, it's provision of sufficient legal standards of preparation and certification of mediator. I was happy to hear, Jan, what happened in Ukraine, though. Legislation background of the job of a mediator is only about to be formed. Mediation is known for a long while, but the field which regulates this job, is only about to an ongoing process anyway. It's a very, very basic law on mediation. It's very new. It reflects everything on it. It's the features of mediation. There was no risk involved of threat. So let's take a look at the point how the professionals were born in the job and who have been practicing for the past 30 years. First of all, there are quite a few of them. I heard the number of the registered mediation in the small country of the Netherlands, and I thought, oh, I only wish we could live to have as many as in the large country, to have as many mediators, professionals as the Netherlands have. But how did we learn about the mediation? It was a basically sporadic learning about mediation. It was experience that we obtained from different donor programs. Professionals from the Netherlands, Canada, America, France, Germany would train us from many other countries as well, and that was very good at the beginning of the fundamentals of the mediator's job in Ukraine. Because from the very beginning, hearing the experience of different countries, as I said, in Italy, one experience in the Netherlands, it's another, we have seen right away in our own experience that mediation is a flexible process, that it can be interpreted differently, it can be employed differently, that it fits all different industries of our life today. It was super great. we used to have people who use different standards of mediation. We know about different phases and stages of mediation because that's how professionals would train us in different countries. And it gave us such a variability of understanding, of deep understanding, of flexibility of mediation. And now that we say for 30 years we have had mediation, we've got a law on mediation, and when now we had a sporadic growth, not only of mediators who would train from the foreign professionals, but we also started to train each other here in Ukraine, within Ukraine. So the training has happened to be sporadic. The quality of this education gives us a right to think what we want to do about it later on, whether to regulate this training and certify institutions who have the right to train, by doing so, narrowing down the opportunities. As you have seen the statistics in the Netherlands, and those organizations that implement these trainings, or to go differently and to provide some professional benchmarks to develop some standards of mediation that would be landmarks for those who study and for those who practice and for those who train others, so that we could see what skills we want to give or we're giving in terms of how high quality we have at the very beginning of the basic level of education. That's the first challenge, to understand what we want to do with the standards of our educational system in order for the entrance into the mediation was high quality. The second thing that I would like to mention is wide popularization of mediation in the Ukrainian society with the purpose to ensure its positive perception. It's a challenge. On the one hand, we know that mediation is well spoken about and a lot, and thanks God, we receive donor assistance in order to spread, circulate the news about mediation, that it's available service in Ukraine in many industries and life of Ukrainians. The challenge in this sense is that today we are advertising mediation as a phenomenon, but marketologists know that advertising of a phenomenon does not always have trust in this. Because if we, together with the advertising of phenomenon, if we do not advertise positive influence of like outcomes, results, how it can be implemented, if we don't speak about the positive results of mediation in any industries, wherever it is used, then we do not create fundamentals of trust to the whole process. So it seems like that for the future, we need to think well how we can spread the information on positive outcomes of holding mediational processes, while taking into consideration making sure that we are confidential, for the sake of which lots of corporations and organizations and physical entities, they go to mediation because they just don't want to have publicity coverage because they have had conflict and they actually involved mediators. This is a challenge to find how we can advertise positive results and outcomes while making sure that we remain confidentiality of the participants of the process. Third, what I see as a challenge is influence of instability of the current extremely challenging situation in Ukraine on the level and depth of the conflicts in society. It's not a secret that the anxiety level and annoyance in Ukraine and emotional strain in the community of Ukraine is increasing, significantly increasing conflictability within the system, with the community, because people are more prone to jump into the conflict, and this conflict escalate very, very fast. I'm not let alone the mediators who actually have to help other people to deal with conflict in such extremely emotionally challenging situations. They're also in this situation themselves. They're also annoyed, irritated, they're overburdened and stressed, and their lives are far from positive, similar to everybody else around them. And what's happening to the mediators who have to have resources in them and to work with conflicts with other people while themselves they are in the stressful situations themselves. That's a challenge. Let me remind you about, please make sure you stick to the time. Yes, I'm finishing. Yeah, that's another challenge, and I see that we can think about creating the system that would help the mediators themselves to receive assistance that they need today, so they could have resources to help other people to resolve their conflicts. And there is a valuable experience when mediators and mediator forums are connected with communities of psychologists and psychotherapists. By doing so, leaving psychotherapists for their own clients when it's necessary. I mean, suggesting their clients to refer to psychologists and psychotherapists. By doing so, how we can mediate to take into consideration all conditions, and on the other hand, by to themselves address or seek assistance when they feel they need it. Here, I would like to wind up about challenges and their solutions. Thank you very much. Thank you. Today, we are as flexible as we are. We're being flexible, which is very important for the procedure of mediation and mediators. Our next speaker is student, a master, second-year master of Donetsky National University, named by Vasil Spitz, Lidia Nesterenko. Topic is new aspects of professional preparation of future legal professionals in terms of legal and clinical education. You're welcome. The floor is yours.
Добрий день.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I do apologize because I have issues here. I do hope that my presentation can be on the screen because for some reason it just won't work on my computer. Please give it a try now. It's working. Will you be responsible for the slide on your computer? Yes, the presentation will be on the screen. Just say when I need to switch to the next slide. Okay, yeah, thank you. Good. I will be speaking on the topic of new aspects of professional preparation of future legal professionals on the part of mediation, particularly in the juridical and clinical education. Next slide, please. Briefly about the topicality, it's been a lot of said about that mediation is gradually gaining more and more popularity as an alternative way how to solve conflicts. And this method is flexible and it allows to avoid long-lasting court litigation. It allows for mutual solutions, as we cannot see in the legal cases. And also, respectively, it decreases expenses on litigations and also helps keep the control of the process and result. And particularly in the context of legal education, it not only facilitates the development of negotiations, but also forms in students the understanding of importance of alternative ways of conflict resolution. And particularly about the legal clinic, they perform as the platform for development of mediation. They provide an opportunity to the students to receive theoretical knowledge, but most importantly is to master practical skills. Such skills are important to resolve conflicts beyond the courtrooms. Briefly, next slide, please. Very briefly about legal governance and about the problems that arise along with that. I won't be focusing on the definitions of mediation, which is in the law of Ukraine on mediation. I will jump exactly to the Article 9 of the law of Ukraine on mediation. It identifies the requirements to mediator. The mediator can be a physical person who has gone through the basic mediation education in Ukraine or abroad, respectively. This article identifies opportunities of additional requirements such as age, special training, education, and practical experience. From this we can see, that the students of legal clinics are not allowed to take the opportunity to be mediators if they meet the conditions. Now I would like to take a look at the law of Ukraine about free of charge legal assistance, and it considers mediation to the legal services. We can see it in Article 1, but it does not include legal clinics and the subjects that can have the right to provide free of charge service. So we can see such a problematic issue that although the students of legal clinics can join the mediation, legal clinics formally they don't have the right to provide free of charge service within the frameworks of mediation. So partly it's a kind of limitation or restrictions that limits the legal clinics who cannot provide full-scale range of services. And this question definitely requires a solution of the legal issues in order to expand the services to mediation, to media services, and provide this provide the access of students to the services. Please, the next slide. I would like to identify thoughts of different scientists. That's Novosad, which highlights that important issues of development of clinical science in Ukraine is creation of experimental program of mediation that would envisage training of students of consultants in legal clinics, in practice, I mean skills, with mediation skills, and also an important idea is the thought of to individuals who identify the professional facets of training on mediation, particularly in the context of commercial disputes, highlight the including the school of intermediary schools while investigating into collective disputes, where training first need to be run with experienced moderators, and then respectively simulation is taking place of the mediational process. Please take a look at the next slide. I would like to say that completion of these steps in the professional preparation of the future legal professionals in the frameworks of the legal education, and to highlight that particularly on the basis of the legal clinics of the Donetsky National University named by Vasil Stus, there were several pilot projects implemented in the design, in the mentioned above sphere. Please, next slide. Respectively, on the basis of the legal clinics organized and are carried out legal services and workshops as an alternative way to resolve conflicts together with train of the project Inna Lehkoduch and together with students in the legal department. Please, next slide. Also, on the basis of legal clinics, we've got trainings on mediation by the certified mediator for the students of legal clinics. On the photograph, you could see the students that they can feel in the role of mediators and gain these skills at the help of such solutions of solution in practice while training among themselves. Next slide, please. Very, very tight schedule, so we will be leaving. So please wind up.
Також, відповідно, проводяться тренінги щодо визначення медіабельності кейсу. Наступне фото. Також це всеукраїнська осіння школа посередництва з врегулювання колективних трудових спорів. Наступний слайд. Ви також можете бачити фото з цієї осінньої школи. І переходимо до наступного слайду. Я визначила декілька перспективних напрямків навчання медіації. Це, перш за все, впровадження онлайн-тренінгів і вебінарів, що дозволяє залучити експертів з різних регіонів та країн, забезпечуючи студентам доступ до світового досвіду у сфері медіації. Наступний слайд. Це також може бути формування міждисциплінарного підходу в навчанні медіації, включаючи психологію, комунікаційні навички і конфліктологію. Це, відповідно, дозволить студентам краще розуміти природу конфліктів і шляхи їхнього вирішення. І останній такий напрям, який я виділила, це розробка практичних кейсів для обговорення в рамках практичних занять, за допомогою яких студенти зможуть вивчати реальні ситуації, аналізувати їх, визначати медіабельність, пропонувати ефективні стратегії медіації і, відповідно, отримувати таким чином певний досвід. І останній слайд, передостанній слайд висновки. Хочеться
And the last slide,
зазначити,
before
що
conclusions, I would
медіація
like to
вона
say that
дійсно має бути таким
mediation
основним
has to
напрямком
be the main direction
для вищих
in
навчальних
the sphere of
закладів,
higher
для
educational
законодавства,
institutions and also for the
для
legislation,
законодавця.
for the
Необхідно
legislator.
також переглянути
It's also
законодавчу
important to
базу, щоб
revision the
забезпечити
legislation
медичним клінікам можливість надавати цю безоплатну соціальну послугу у сфері медіації. І це, відповідно, буде сприяти не лише підвищенню
will
якості
facilitate
освіти, а й
not only the improvement of the quality, but access to people who with low incomes.
І запрошуємо до слова Тетяну Білик,
Now we give the
голову
floor to
управління
Tatiana
Міжнародного
Bilik,
тренінгового центру «Школа медіації» з доповіддю «Філософія
who
медіації»,
will speak
що
about the
є
philosophy of
успіх або
mediation, what
невдача в
means
практиці медіатора.
that it
Будь
is
ласка.
success or a failure in the
Так,
practice of
колеги,
mediator.
вітаю. Добрий день. Перш ніж я розпочну свою презентацію, я відкрию і хочу попросити
Now I want
всіх,
to
хто залишився, і
ask
мені дуже
everyone who
шкода,
is
що зараз
here.
так мало
It's
учасників залишилося на
actually a
цій
shame that
конференції,
so little
але
participants
вдячна
stayed, but still
організаторам
I'm grateful for the
за можливість
organizers,
і за дуже потужний захід.
grateful to the
Я
organizers
хочу
for such an
попросити всіх, хто
opportunity.
є, або
I'd
через
like to
QR-код,
ask everyone
або посилання
to
посилання, на яке
follow
зараз
this QR
продублюю
code
в чат, сюди в зумовський чат,
here in the Zoom.
пройти таке опитування коротеньке, да, і поки я свою презентацію зроблю, то
While you take the
і
survey,
подивимось на
I will
результати,
see the
і, можливо,
results.
це теж доповнить вже ту інформацію, якою я хотіла б
And
сьогодні
we'll continue
поділитися.
with the information
І
that I
зараз в
wanted to
чат
share
ще
today.
продублюю
I'll also send it to the chat.
посилання на Mentimeter, да, з цим опитуванням. Так, і відкрию знову презентацію.
And I will open the presentation
І
again.
вже перейду до своєї теми.
And
Тема моєї
I will speak about my topic. The topic of my presentation
достатньо абстрактна.
is quite abstract.
Називається філософія
It's called
медіації,
the
що
philosophy
ми
of
можемо назвати
mediation,
успіхом або
what can be
невдачею
called
в
a
нашій
success or a
практиці.
failure in our
І
practices.
вже з того, що я чула сьогодні
Out of what I heard today
від інших доповідачів,
from other
я
speakers,
дуже радію, тішуся тому, що ми
I'm
можемо
very
пишатися
happy
здобутками, які є в
that we
нашій
can be
практиці
proud of
медіації.
the success that we have
Коли
in
я прийшла
mediation.
в медіацію,
When
в
I
Україні
started
не
working as a
існувало
mediator
такої
in
сфери, як
Ukraine, we
сімейна
didn't
медіація.
have family
І
mediation in
розвиваючи її
Ukraine.
останні
And by
15
developing
років,
it for the last
дуже
15 years,
пишаюся тим,
I'm
що
very
ми
proud
змогли вже реалізувати як ті проекти, які є.
that we have been
Це
able to
Асоціація
implement
сімейних
such
медіаторів
projects as the
України,
Association of
Факультет
Family
України
Mediators
і Школа
of
медіації,
Ukraine
де
and
ми
the School of
проводимо
Mediation, where
різноманітне навчання
we
і
have
різні
different
підготовки до
training concerning
спеціалізації.
the
І чому
this
я обрала саме
specifics.
цю тему?
I
Ну, на
chose
мій
this
погляд,
topic
вибачте, на мій погляд, це, напевно, є
because, in my opinion,
основним для
it is
розвитку
the most important
медіації.
thing
Бо
in the
медіатор
development
є
of mediation
основним
because
моментом в процедурі
mediation
медіатора
is indeed one of the most important
Це
tools in these
основний
practices.
інструмент, якщо ми його не можемо налаштувати, якщо ми його не
And
розвиваємо,
if we are not
то і наша
able
практика
to
фактично буде невдалою і
develop it, we will
звісно,
fail
теж
at
не
that,
буде мати успіху.
and we
Тому
will
для
not
мене
be
ця тема
successful in
дуже
this
актуальна,
area.
і
Therefore,
напевно
this
я
topic for
розпочну
me
з
it's
того, що
very
я
relevant,
поділюся
and I'll start
кейсом.
by sharing a
Один з
case,
кейсів,
one of
який я
my
вважаю
cases
невдачею.
that I
Невдачею,
consider
да?
to
Тобто це
be
те, що я можу назвати як
a
невдача
failure.
в
That's
моїй
what I can
практиці.
call a failure in
Це
my
кейс, який
practice. It's a
розпочався,
case that started
який в мене був на початку повномасштабного
at
вторгнення.
the beginning of the full-scale invasion,
Да, тобто це там приблизно березень або квітень
around March or
22-го
April
року, який
2022,
надійшов до мене саме
that I
через
got through
міжнародну соціальну службу,
international
як один з
social
кейсів, який
services, one
нам
of the
спрямовує
cases that
роботу в сімейній
we
медіації.
get in
Я
family
є
mediation.
представником ICC в
I
Україні.
represent ICC in
І цей
Ukraine,
кейс стосувався саме шлюбно-розлучних
and it had to
конфліктів,
do
які
with a
виникають, коли
divorce and
подружжя
conflicts arising when
розлучаються, і він був
the
пов'язаний саме з тим, що
spouse
на початку
gets a
повномасштабного
divorce, and at the
вторгнення
very
чоловік
beginning of
пішов
this
на
full-scale
війну,
invasion,
та
the
й він був
man went to
змушений
fight in the army,
захищати
and he
країну
had
і
to
не
protect the country
не мав
and
можливості
didn't have a chance
виховувати дітей,
to
які
raise
були.
children that
Жінка
they had.
поїхала
The
за
woman
кордон
went
старшою
abroad
донькою, і
with the older
конфлікт виник
daughter,
саме
and
щодо
the conflict arose
молодшого сина,
concerning the younger son who who a month before the full-scale invasion had a surgery concerning his cancer treatment, and the dispute concerning whether the mother can take the younger son abroad to continue treatment at the best European clinics, because there was support from international companies in order to make sure that this children gets the best treatment possible. Why I think that this case is a failure, why it's not a success for me, because even though this family found common ground and they reached agreement on their issue, and accompanied by parents, this person was able to go abroad. This case is a failure for me because I felt a lot of anger with the parents when I was working on this case. It was related to the fear that when looking back at that after practices, I understand that they had to do mostly with feeling responsible for the life and health of this child. Given that when training family mediators, I always say that if you want to help the parents, if you want to help the child, you need to help the parents. Only in this way you will be able to reach your maximum efficiency when working with the conflict among the parents. But I felt this loss of this neutral position for the situation because the health that was quite critical caused a lot of emotions for me, and of course it precluded me from being neutral. And what I felt concerning these parents did not help in this case. The parents were able to reach agreement, but during this session and during work on this case, it was very intense, it was very strained, and there were many questions as to whether it could have been done otherwise. The best solution is if I had been in a different state. It's the question that I asked here during this presentation, because when we speak of experience, of practice of a mediator, I always ask myself, and I want to ask you, does always experience improves competency? We heard a lot about competencies of the mediator that we need to have during training, during our practice, but does really experience make us more competent? Doesn't it happen that during training we learn some algorithms of work of a mediator and continue using that over further approach? And then we have a question. If I have experience, if somebody says that I have a lot of cases, I have 1,000 cases, or the person says that I have a lot of cases that ended up by mediation agreements, is it the experience that equals competency? Maybe it's something that the fact that I have 1,000 mediations, but all the while I do only one mediation for 1,000 times. It's a question that's always relevant for you, because when we say that we make a lot of mistakes, whatever you do, you just make it more deeply rooted, even if you do it for 1,000 times. It's also important to remember that we always learn more from our failures than from our success. Success teaches us nothing. Therefore, did we become more masterful, it's about competence, or just more experienced, it's about the number of cases that we have in our portfolio, and that we can say that, yes, I have 1,000 cases.
Тому важливе питання, яке
Therefore,
я
it's an important question that I ask myself all the time, and that I ask you to ask yourselves every single time. How do we perceive ourselves and our work throughout our practice? Because practice without learning, just through experience, is incomplete. Tatiana, you're saying very important things, but I want to remind you about the time. Repetition brings to mechanical work what was mentioned today when we're not mindful, when we're not conscious of what we're doing, when we cannot control what we are doing. And there can be some mistakes related to the fact that we do not control what we are doing. Without aspiration to learn, experience does not help us reach more professionalism. And the practices, the practitioners who do the same things all over again without reflection and without consciousness, it means that these habits will forever be ingrained in their practice. So what is important, and that's the conclusion I'd like to make, is that we need to do humble work of self-reflection, of the strategies given new situations and experience that we face in our practice. Only through the self-discovery can we develop. That's it on my part. Now I'll stop sharing my screen, and if it's possible, I'd like to see the results. What were the answers that you gave to the questions in the survey that we had? Just give me a second, I will share this. You can send it and we will share it with the participants, because the questions that you are raising are very deep. I can send it, and you can see that unfortunately only 16 people took part out of the 15 practitioners have over 10 cases. We have only one person. That's why that's the result. The answer, successful mediation, is when the parties are successful with the results of the mediation. And that is what we see. That is what is the question for me now, as to whether we have enough practitioners who have sustainable practices and who mediate after they have been through training for many years. We see that there are very few of such practitioners among us. That's a shame, but I hope it's what we will be working on and developing further. Thank you. Thank you again for your presentation. It's indeed room for development, the emphasis that you made, because it's indeed not only about quantity, it's not about the numbers. I want to give the floor to Ulrika Paskara, who represents the community cooperation with which is especially grateful. It's the Association of the Legal Clinics of Ukraine. Ulrika Paskal is the head of our legal clinic at our university, and for me, such cooperation with the Association of the Legal Clinics is indeed a huge emphasis and a huge room for development for Ulrika Paskar. The floor goes now to Ulrika Paskar, and we will be hearing about the social function. Good evening, everyone. I'll try to present my speech today in a quite fast way to make sure it's better perceived.
Так і бокову панель комп'ютера, але зараз, щоб не витрачати час, я залишу в
Not to
такому
waste time, I'll leave it as is. What is the social function of legal clinics in ensuring access to mediation, and whether it's possible? If it concerns the legal clinic, this definition that we have is contained in the standards of the activity of the legal clinics in Ukraine, and the main function of the legal clinic is aimed at the discharge of two functions. because we have it under the educational establishment. Here, the students can get theoretical skills and can practice them, and the social function that is aimed at making sure that people have a chance to get free legal aid from our students, and at the same time that students get this social responsibility, high moral and ethical principles caused by the challenges that they are doing. And it's mostly about some people who have low income. And the clinic functions under the university not only as the we also provide free legal aid, and we help the people solve legal questions that arise. There are two possible ways that have to do with courts, in court and out of court. Mostly we have judicial procedures when we'll analyze the cases that we had in our legal clinic. It's mostly with the court, going to court, that they chose. Why? When we speak of the out-of-court dispute settlements, the topic of my address today is that mostly we speak of mediation because if mediation is compared to the court proceedings, mediation is faster, it's cheaper, it's free, meaning that it's done voluntarily or of free will. And the most important thing here is that the parties do not become enemies, because after the court proceedings, there are two opposing parties. Yet, if we have positive mediation, then respectively, people interact and the conflict is minimized. Then, as to whether the legal clinic can be the agent of mediation, here we have three key elements where we need to concentrate and develop. First of all, whether it can do it. By that I mean whether there are enough skills for doing that, then whether they have the right to do that, and then in what specific way legal clinics can mediate. Today we heard the emphasis that legal clinics are the agents of the mediation. They make mediation more popular, they promote it, they share information with the society that there is this way of settling the conflict that can be much faster and much better than the court proceeding. However, as far as whether the legal clinic can be doing that and whether it has this right, we have extract from the rules of procedure of the legal clinic of our university based on typical standard document, and here we see the provision of first primary legal aid, practical training, and legal awareness. So mediation could have fit, and hypothetically with this areas of activity, whether the case is considered by clinic mediable, that's a different question, and the students need to learn to distinguish between what can be solved through a mediation. The analysis of the cases that we have conducted over this year started with the 1st of January. Till today in the legal clinic we had 56 cases, and the statistics is that mostly it's about quashing the payment order. We had 8 cases on marriage dissolution, 5 cases regarding the establishment of legally important facts, 10 regarding the deprivation of parental rights and alimony payments, and also cases on change the jurisdiction concerning recalculation of pensions and other payments. In these cases, as professional mediators, you can see that there are cases that can be helped by mediation, such marriage dissolution or the alimony payments, so depriving people of parental rights. I'm not a mediator, but I could imagine that students could consider the possibility of using mediation here. At our department, it's easier to do because we have a lab managed by Lidia, and if the situation exists, we can refer our clients there. And then how can the clinics do that? I studied international experience that introduces it, and we had very interesting research by the logo show. So she had a study visit to the USA, and there at the Department of Law of the University of Lowell in Chicago, she observed how mediation works in a legal clinic. There were the situations that a student analyzes the case and suggests using mediation to the clients. So first, this person offers mediation. Then, if the persons agree, a practicing lawyer who practices mediator is involved. If the result is positive, the case is closed. And if the mediation is unsuccessful, the student works on that as a lawyer and forwards it to court. Works on it till it gets to the court. We could use this model here in Ukraine, but engaging the clinics in that is a must because we have a huge potential. Our students who are young and motivated can make it work. We also have the experience. Our clinic was not done under my management. Lidia Nesterenko will speak more because she chaired this project. There were this project's legal clinics agents on promoting mediation as a way to settle disputes, and there were different surveys within this project. There was law awareness activities regarding mediation, and all in all, why do we need mediation and whether it should be conducted should be viewed not from this perspectives that the society will benefit from it. How will the students benefit by it? Okay, thank you for a reminder. Therefore, to sum up, now we need, it's not my opinion, I heard it today, we need to shape a culture of the peaceful settlement of disputes, and the legal clinics can very nicely and inspiredly and qualitatively do this work because it engages our students. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry for a very brief presentation of my thoughts. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, dear Aurika. Actually, legal clinics can and are already mediation providers in Ukraine. When you wrote this project, our students said students must conduct mediation. And we said that no, students should refer to mediation. But anyway, the students did it, that had a mock session, and they made it work. Now I give the floor, I guess, to the last speaker for today because we are actually not sticking to the timeline, but we'd really like to hear from Alexandra Seluk. We hope she is with us. She is a lawyer who is an expert who is working in the area of contractual law and who is the director of the legal clinic and professor of the Lutsk Department of Law at Technical University. Thank you so much, dear colleagues. It's very good to be a participant of at your event today. I get it that you're all tired. I'll speak less than 6 minutes. I want to tell you and to sum up what we heard today as to what exactly can be done by our Lutsk Technical University, how we use mediation. It's a quite interesting path with this interesting procedure. Because when I started teaching this discipline, I chair this clinic, I also provide ADR trainings to master students. So mostly I had to convince our master students, because most of our master students are practicing lawyers, that actually mediation can be useful. I was thinking, if the lawyer is not a mediator, would mediation skills be useful to a lawyer? In these interesting and interactive lectures, I had this experience that we use in our clinic. Of course, working as a lawyer in the 21st century, I fully agree with all the colleagues who spoke before. It's impossible without the proper civilized communication skills, even if the person doesn't plan to work as a lawyer, still mediation skills is important. What do people from our clinic use? First training that they have before working with people is active listening, because the student who goes into the clinic is afraid. He is afraid, then he has some bias towards clients who go and apply. That is why active listening helps establish the essence of the case, to show that the student cares, that he gathers information, and these instruments are 100% operational, and we can say about it from our own experience and observe it every single day. Therefore, active listening as a tool is actively used. I'll tell you more. As a practitioner, I started practicing mediation because I lacked the tools for finding this common interest of a client. Therefore, I started looking for information. Finally, I found mediation. I want to say that in any case, in legal clinics, it's especially important to use mediation tools. I'll not speak about the full list, but given that we have quite a limited range that we use, we implemented emotional intelligence when the practicing psychologist comes and she teaches how to work with emotions, and then we include further different techniques. Also, I'd like very briefly mention here, and I understand that we need to finalize, so we indeed didn't stick to the agenda fully. So if anyone should have any questions, feel free to ask anything. I'll answer them in email. Thank you so much. It was very brief, very succinct, but it works. I see.
I'm perfectly honest to thank you, everyone, because I'm holding the microphone right now. I would like to speak on behalf of everyone, and for everyone who has spent the whole day. I also would like to thank our management, our directorate of our department, and our partners for the support. I would like to thank our students for their being active, for their energy that we make a very good use of, and we get becoming inspired. I also would like to thank our teachers for their resilience. I also would like to thank our mediators and practitioners who get involved and who help enhance our students. Also would like to thank every our community NGO where we had practical mediations, and also would like to thank our partners who today have supported our event and other events as well. I also want to thank our military people who are protecting us, because while they're there in the front line with weapons, we're preparing other instruments for them to come back into their peaceful social life. Thank you very much. After such warm words of gratitude, it's very difficult to add. I would like to now welcome to join Luisa, if she's online, for our final words to wind up with our conference. And I will join with genuine gratitude that was really inspiring, and I would say even empowering. It was a huge, big conference. I would like to give you a bit of the context. While Luisa is joining, we had been hesitant. We had 47 speakers at the report. We understood in reality, we understood this exhaustive. This is the marathon as big as that. But for us, it was extremely important to show everyone, because every one of us is unique, and our ideas as individual are unique. and one of a kind. And particularly for us, this conference has highlighted. So that's why I'm thankful to every speaker. I do apologize for those speakers who we hadn't had a chance to provide them a chance to give a speak. It's my responsibility. I do apologize. And I do appreciate being here with you today and for the opportunity you give me to grow. Thank you very much. Louisa? The microphone is off. Please turn it on, will you? Okay. So while Louisa is getting connected, I'm going to say hello to my colleagues who have managed to endure this long marathon to moderate with so many participants. Miss Christina, thank you. In reality, I'm honestly grateful to this city. When we first joined this university, when we met together with Miss Ruslana, Lidia, we felt the people who are thinking alike. There is a spirit of science in these walls, and in reality, it's very heartwarming. Until the ending of the conference, there are students who resiliently, with endurance, who have been listening and who are acquiring new experience, and this empowers us. There's a huge hope that we have an opportunity to work further on because we know who we do it for the state, and who can take over after us and develop a good way of mediation in Ukraine. Thank you very much. Let me thank everyone for your scales of work that we have carried out. We came here on the 15th of August. Today is the 15th of November. It's been 3 months. It's very difficult to identify the dates and years. And I wouldn't say it was exhausting. No, it was cool, I would say, because we met from 9 in the evening till 11 in the evening, and we talked over different issues. And with co-organizers, we would speak, and we saw the number of people who would join. That was definitely inspiring. Together with this experience, now we started it off early in the morning, and now it's evening time. We also are looking forward to reaching back home. We would also be happy to receive your feedbacks in order to know how in the future to organize conferences, because you heard that we've got a grander plans for the second conference. So we're looking forward to receiving your feedback, and we're hopeful that you have made very good use of anything from the conference, and it's very happy to see people who have got inspiration and knowledge to use in this conference. Thank you. While Ms. Louisa is here, organization-wise, I can say that feedbacks may be left on the form of questions, and we also would make a email, direct mail. I will show you the QR code where you could just follow, and using your live experience, leave your feedback there. I'm greeting everyone on 1 year of mediation. It will be tomorrow. Online? Can anyone join us online? Can I say a couple of words? Oh, Lilia, yeah, you're welcome. Sure. I would wish to express my gratitude to our defenders who have made sure that we can, in the peaceful background, could speak about our topic. And I was happy to see that our people with high cultural level were all tolerant. I have received so much pleasure from the communication and the organizational committee and with all the participants, but also would like to to express a separate word of gratitude who wanted to participate, but Ms. Chabatar, who was ill, but she managed to arrive. I was happy because I found out that we got acquainted, And I am saying, and I'm happy that our students have got certified mediators, and we can provide mediator services through the network of clinics, legal clinics. I'm happy for everyone who has made the presentations, who performed, who have managed to arrive to this meeting. And I'm very happy that we managed to pull off everything. A huge respect to the organizational committee who is responsible for organizing things, to Lidia, Christina, to everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lilia, for highlighting. We have been looking for the students. We've been looking for her online. We've been in touch with her, and our technical engineers will tell us it's not available. It's not available. So that's why we can, if you allow us, we would let the opportunity for them to speak. I'm ready to join. Just right now, I can use the presentation, or I can just say, even without the presentation, what do you think? We're speaking about Miss Chabotar, right? Yes, who has just today arrived in Chernivtsi. Yeah. If she's over there in the hall, because she worked a lot and she was also unwell. Oh, thank you very much for highlighting. The participants, organizers of the International Scientific and Practical Conference, Mediation Universities 1.0. I'm genuinely happy that I have honor and privilege to speak here to share my impressions and opinions and thoughts as a student of mediator, as for mediation and meaningfulness on the basis of competence of the legal clinics at the university. Yes, my name is Anastasia Chabotar. I am a second year student, bachelor degree, international relations and social communications, and original student at the Donetsk National University, named after schools, who in 2014 has existed in Vinnytsia. Now I want to say about how I got to know about mediation. Everything started off in the first year when, besides politology, we started to a little bit find out more about mediation. Later on, thanks to my teacher, Golynska Irina, I found out about that Ukrainian Academy of Mediation is running the competition that's called Creatively about Mediation. Naturally, I got very interested to dive deep in this, what is unknown to me. I took part, and sometime later I understood that I won it, where the main award was course of preparing the training for meditation. Because I learned to find out new things, I like to open closed doors. I understood this is definitely will be interesting. Now I can observe that for every student, in general, it's important to communicate and right away sort out not really successful situations that happen to them. That's why, in my opinion, even just managing the skills by the student, who is able to develop skills to listen to the other party and without finishing the plot or the story by themselves, but to hear the interests and working with emotions. Because university is not an important step. Who has decided to take up this thing? It's a different society with different opinions who can cause misunderstanding, either unravel very quickly or get soothed. Later on, I understand that mediation can be developed on the basis of legal clinics at university, and in reality, it's an important aspect of preparing the students to different directions. What are the main directions and improve our professionalism, how to prepare, but while cooperating with the legal clinic? Well, the first direction is by means of trainings, of course, that can be carried out by the certified student mediator on the university department in the legal clinics during practical preparation for the highlighted, for the identified targeted audience. We can intensify theoretical knowledge of mediation, principles, stages, advantages, and also limitations, and also legal basis for mediations in role in system of justice. Think about the second direction. It's thanks to the participation of certified students in different activities. It might be offline as well as online, mediation of process of games, participation, competitions, and events, etc. So there is a possibility of improvement of practical skills, but first of all, I would like to highlight communicative skills as using different techniques and instruments in mediation, identifying interests and managing conflicts, start seeking compromises, building up on trust, identifying mediability of participants. The direction is definitely practical work of certified student in the legal clinic. This will allow to let students know the real mediation cases. Thanks to that, they can receive practical hands-on experience and apply their theoretical knowledge, develop their personal skills, and develop and control their own emotions. And this in general identifies, and it is called development of emotional intelligence, also effective management of stress, improvement of mitigation of conflictual situations, and also a little bit about, finally, about additional directions of the professional growth of the certified students in the university. First, it's creating the network of the certified mediators of students on the basis of legal clinics to share experience and for easier communication, mutual communication. Later, it can transform into student center for spreading the information on mediation. Next is carrying out by the student of the informational meetings together with clinicists and the vulnerable groups of people who respectively refer to the legal assistant belong to providing the services to the employees and students who seek mediation clinics into the legal clinics in case of interpersonal and other conflicts. Also, participation in the project on mediation in which legal clinic is involved and other departments of the university. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. I think you can appreciate this part to be the leading, like a rock star part in this conference. Thank you. Thank you. See you soon.